From the historic and distinctive Mediterranean atmosphere of the unique round-the-houses circuit at Monaco, the Grand Prix scene has made a huge transatlantic leap to downtown Detroit in Michigan, USA. Unlike Monaco, the new circuit is used in an anti-clockwise direction and is all straights and corners rather than curvy twists and turns. But like Monaco, it has a tunnel and is very tough on brakes and transmissions. None of the drivers have seen it before, so they all start equal after the frenzied rush to get here for round 7 of the World Championship. Only 6 points separate the top 6, with Alain Prost 1 ahead of John Watson, Pironi 3rd, Rosberg 4th, Monaco winner Patrese 5th, and Niki Lauda 6th. And after an extremely contentious practice period, once again it's Alain Prost in pole position, with Andrea De Cesaris 2nd, Rosberg 3rd, Pironi 4th, Winkelhock 5th, and Giacomelli 6th. John Watson's down in 17th, and amazingly, world champion Nelson Piquet's failed to qualify.
The Grand Prix circus went back across the Atlantic to Detroit, a town where imported automobiles aren't always a welcome sight. But Formula One cars don't threaten anyone's job, so the puzzled spectators were all smiles.
I think it's nice.
I think it's great for the city of Detroit, and the interruption I think is well worth it.
Fantastic.
I think it's all right. I think Detroit needs something like that.
I think it's really exciting.
Have you ever seen that sort of racing before?
No.
You're going to be here on Sunday?
No.
I believe we build the best cars in the world here, and what better place to have a race than the Motor City?
The circuit for Detroit's first Grand Prix wasn't even finished, hence no practice. The drivers did a lot of being just one of the boys and stuff like that.
Tanamaki, as always, in the pits. There's a view of the Renaissance Center, and now the first 3 rows, Jackie.
Well, the first 3 rows starting from the bottom end there in car number 23, Bruno Giacomelli from Italy. Bruno Giacomelli, 29 years of age, now makes his home in Italy. Next to him will be Manfred Winkelhock, and that's Bruno Giacomelli right there in that car number 23, the red and white car. He, of course, being very Italian, driving for an Italian team. Of course, very proud the Italians are of motor racing. That's Winkelhock. That's the driver who's going to be almost alongside him. It's a staggered grid here. They're not side by side. He's driving a car that until now has almost not qualified for many of the Grand Prix. It's always been a borderline case, and here he finds himself starting in 5th position on the starting grid. Very impressive for the young driver in his very first year of Grand Prix racing.
Again, we're moving from the 3rd row forward.
That's correct. And as we go forward, we see Didi Pironi driving the lone Ferrari. Gilles Villeneuve was sadly killed in a race during practice, in fact, for that race, the Belgian Grand Prix. Pironi taking over the number 1 position and the only position in this race for Ferrari. There you see Keke Rosberg from Finland. You see great difference in nationalities, putting on his balaclava to protect him against fire. In the case of fire, to give the driver an opportunity to protect himself. Driving a British car with Arab sponsorship. Again, the internationalism of Grand Prix racing. Frank Williams, the man who put that car and team together. Then you see another new international man, Andrea De Cesaris, only 22 years of age, so nearly won the Monaco Grand Prix that we all hopefully saw in ABC's Wide World of Sports. De Cesaris, very excited driver, had a little accident, damaged the car yesterday, and of course still wanting to win his first Grand Prix. And the man in pole position, the fastest man so far around here, Alain Prost, who, funnily enough, I suggested at the beginning of the season might win the World Championship this year. The enormous resources of the big companies behind him, Renault and Elf, sponsoring his team. A lot of money there with a lot of success so far, Jim.
Certainly has. He won the first 2 Grand Prix of the season, and now he's on the pole for the first running of the Detroit Grand Prix. We'll be back live for the start. We're back again live in the streets of Detroit. Jim McKay in the commentary booth with Jackie Stewart, and there is the field. You're looking down at the first row of Alain Prost of France. He's on the right of your screen in the yellow and white car. In the red and white car, Andrea De Cesaris of Italy in the Marlboro Alfa Romeo. There is Prost's car, the pole-sitting winner. Again, remember, he won the first two Grand Prix of the season. At this point, Jackie, what's happening with these cars? We're very close to the start.
There's an army of mechanics still on hand. These cars do not start with self-starters. They start with extra auxiliary batteries so that they don't drain any of the battery or any of the energy to restart the car if, for example, it breaks down or stops or spins out during one of these warm-up laps or, in fact, during the race itself. So those mechanics are now clearing that grid.
Now, of course, this will not be the actual start. What they will do at this point is move around slowly at first on a so-called pace lap, not actually setting the pace, because what happens at the end of that lap is they return to their positions on the starting grid. Would you say the main purpose of this is to make sure that everybody's motor engine is running and running properly as we look at the temperature and the other weather conditions there?
The ideal temperatures, by the way, not too hot and not too cool. And as the cars move off there, keep in mind this is not the start of the race, this is the pace lap. The drivers get an opportunity to not only warm up the engines or their transmissions, but also their tires. And of course, René Arnoux is way back in the back of the grid, as we mentioned, the teammate of Alain Prost, who's in pole position. We can expect to see a bit of a rush up from him, but right now, as they go around this very picturesque Grand Prix with this Renaissance Centre as almost a table piece in the centre of this glamorous way of running a motor race through the metropolis. You see the cars there. You see Keke Rosberg's car, number 6, Pironi's car, number 28. That's the young British driver, Mansell, in car number 12, the black car, the Lotus, designed by Colin Chapman, who has won the Indianapolis 500 with Jim Clark, a great designer. There you see the specifications of the racetrack right now, 20 turns. Amazing, with more than 40 gear changes per lap. It's going to be tough. It's going to be very tough on transmissions here, Jim.
All right, let's set the field now. In row 1, Prost and De Cesaris. Row 2, Rosberg of Finland and Pironi of France. Then Wigelhock of Germany, Giacomelli of Italy. Moving along, row 4, Mansell and De Angelis. Then Eddie Cheever of the United States, the only American driver in the race, and former world champion Niki Lauda. Then Guerrera, the first Colombian ever to drive Grand Prix, and Derek Daly of Ireland. Row 7, Jacques Lafitte and Riccardo Patrese, who was so effective at Monte Carlo. René Arnoux, Michele Alboreto in the Tyrrell. Row 9, there's John Watson, who's won a Grand Prix this season, and Jochen Mass of Germany. Row 10, Marc Surer of Switzerland, Brian Hinton. Row 11, Raoul Bossel of Brazil, Jean-Pierre Jarier of France, then Ricardo Paletti and Mauro Baldi. Row 13, 2 in a row, as you see, Eliseo Salazar and the Brazilian Chico Serra. That's the field then, Jackie, and a very, very tight race course, as is indicated very graphically here.
Well, amazingly, they're doing about 100 miles an hour through there if they're really standing on it. Of course, we're still in the pace lap. Look at our tunnel shot here, a great shot in this tunnel. Again, we have a tunnel in Monte Carlo. So much of this racetrack in some way resembles Monaco. I don't mind saying it, because this could easily be Monte Carlo right here. It's not quite as long a tunnel, but a great shot for us as the cars come out of there and head towards the start-finishing line, and they'll be slowing their pace up so that they don't have to wait too long. Now, Nelson Piquet, the reigning world champion, has not qualified for this race. He had problems, mechanical problems yesterday. There was rain in the afternoon session, and Piquet, the past world champion, 1981 world champion, is not in the race. First time it's ever happened since Jody Scheckter did not qualify at Montreal in 1980 while he was champion.
We should point out the race is scheduled for 75 laps or 2 hours in time, whichever comes first. Our guess is that the 2 hours will come first.
Now, what happens now, all the cars must come to a stop, and the picture on the right-hand side of your screen right now is a red light will come on when the official starter is satisfied that all of the cars have come to a complete stop. When that light comes on, within 10 seconds, the green light can go, and in which case that is the start of the race. Remember, of course, it's a standing start. The car at the back there, by the way, is medical crews, and they're under starters' orders.
Prost on the right of your screen. De Cesaris on the left. Keke Rosberg making the move into the first turn. It's Alain Prost, leader for the World Championship, out in front. The pole sitter leading, going through this first 180-degree, 100-mile-an-hour turn. It's Prost in front, followed by De Cesaris and Keke Rosberg. Look at Rosberg now moving to the right, Jackie.
And also the Ferrari of Pironi up there as well, very tight in there, but it's Prost who out-accelerated the rest of the cars. He's got more horsepower in his Renault, although on the other hand it's a turbocharged car. It carries more fuel and therefore heavier in the beginning. Going on to the faster part of the racetrack, he takes a slight advantage there, but Alain Prost at the slowest part of the racetrack still has his lead there, followed by De Cesaris, then Keke Rosberg, then Pironi, and then one of the Lotus cars, probably Mansell in the Lotus car.
But Prost stretching it out just a little bit on the first lap of the first Detroit Grand Prix. And here, one car pulling off to the side. Let's get the number on that car. Number 30, that is Mauro Baldi of Italy, of the Arrows team. At the hairpin, pulling off the race course.
And again,
attendant there very quickly with a fire extinguisher, by the way.
Well, a very disappointed young man, but there's Alan Frost. Remember, the man who's leading this World Championship this year in the Renault, accelerating out onto Jefferson and heading up towards the Cobo Hall, the big convention centre. Hard braking again with full fuel load at this time. The car is rather clumsy and difficult to handle.
Now downhill into a depression here. Looks like a tunnel, but it isn't. They'll go under a small overpass, but then head for the real tunnel. Here is the tunnel, the one that reminds you so much of Monte Carlo with the Renaissance Center in the background.
Streaking through that tunnel at about 140 to 145 miles an hour, braking heavily for a second gear corner right now. Alan Frost driving very neatly at this point. He must not make a mistake, and in the early laps it's so easy, and there's one of the cars.
Yes, we have there Raul Pocel of Brazil in the march. 2 cars so far having small incidents on the race course. Prost still leading as they finish the first lap. Prost followed by the Cesaris in the red and white car, then the green and white car of Keke Rosberg of Finland. Prost out in front, that's the yellow and white car just leaving your screen. The Cesaris, the red and white. Rosberg, then as you see, Pironi, Mansell of Great Britain, and Giacomelli. They'll be nearing the hairpin, and we'll see if that race car is still in the area. They're still racing under green. You get this wide shot by the church. Here they go. No, it's well parked on the side. No problem. Slowest part of the race course, and now this left turn that would be a normal left turn, as you'd see on a regular street, because that's what these are. Hard left, 90-degree turn.
Well, the car that's leading there, and there's an oil flag out. I see one of the marshals holding a yellow and red striped flag out there to demonstrate that there may be oil on the racetrack. It may be slippery, so the drivers will take another line. This information tremendously important to the race drivers to be kept informed. Quite often after the first lap, some overfilled oil tanks can spill out and there can be trouble. One of the Tyrrells in the pits. Oh, Michele Alboreto in the pit. Now, this is the young man who finished third at Imola earlier in the Grand Prix season, showing great promise in the pits already. But the man not in the pits and very much in a commanding lead so early in the race is, of course, Alan Frost.
And the team we saw in the pits, Tyrrell, it's your old racing team. You must feel a little personal twinge for them.
Yes.
Into the tunnel for the second time goes Alain Prost of France on Renault. It's a French driver, a French car, a French engine. French all the way. And look at Keke Rosberg closing in on Andrea de Cesaris. A battle for second place now shaping up. The Cesaris of Italy, the Alfa Romeo. Look at Rosberg, almost making the move for the pass.
Well, he's really scratching to get round there. De Cesaris driving a 12-cylinder car, the Alfa Romeo engine car, a little more flexible in its engine power. But and we have Jochen Mass. It looks like the German. No, it's one of the ATS cars. It's
Winkelhoff, who started well up, who started on the third row, the young West German, who surprisingly qualified so well, but he's out of it now. Manfred Winkelhoff of West Germany on the ATS team. And here we still have Keke Rosberg pursuing the Cesaris of Italy. Rosberg of Finland in that green and white car of the Williams team, which, as you pointed out, is really international, Jackie. It has Arab sponsorship, Saudi Arabia, English car, Finnish driver.
And also, ironic, they had a great dice together, a great battle in Monte Carlo. Again, 22 years of age, the young man in the red and white car, and the man behind him in the green and white car is 33 years of age. And then you see the order as we have it just now, live here from Detroit. The car number 6, the white car you see, is the car of Keke Rosberg. This is the lead car, of course, of Alain Prost. Tremendously young and talented driver. Very impressive.
Jackie, where can Rosberg pass? Where's the spot to do it?
Under braking. He will wait to see the Cesaris make a slight error, and you can see how much of the road they use there coming on to Jefferson. Right there, Keke Rosberg has no reason to go out around there. He's probably trying to miss the manhole covers because we're running through the streets here, and he wants to save his suspension and his transmission. And the more you miss in the way of bumps, the kinder you are to your car, because these cars literally have no suspension left. They have a thing called ground effect, which makes the car really stick to the road, but it works best when there's little or no suspension movement.
The same ground effect that we had at Indianapolis, but they're allowed to have a stronger ground effect, are they not, in Grand Prix racing?
They are indeed, and it was here that it was developed, and Rosberg trying to get a pass, and he's done it.
A.K. Rosberg of Finland passing Andrea De Cesaris of Italy for second place in the race.
It looks to me like De Cesaris is in trouble. He's gone into the pits. De Cesaris has gone into the pits. That was the final corner in that lap. So Andrea De Cesaris has had a problem in his Alfa Romeo. They have been unreliable, and you see him in the pits right now. They have not been too good this year so far. He's getting out of the car. It looks to me like he's trying to unbuckle his seatbelt. It looks more than just a problem of perhaps a tire going down or a minor problem. They're chatting too long. I think you can expect little or nothing in the leaderboard from now on from that driver.
Well, remember that in this kind of racing, there are no scheduled pit stops in this race. This is not Indy, where you can make up time when the other fellow makes his pit stop. You make a pit stop here, it's all time against you. Looking down from high overhead. And there are the standings. Prost and Rosberg. De Cesaris now into the pits, so forget him. Pironi, Mansell, and Giacomelli. We're live from the Detroit Grand Prix. We're live in Detroit again. Still Prost of France leading the first Detroit Grand Prix, followed by Rosberg of Finland, Pironi of France, Mansell of Great Britain, Giacomelli of Italy, and now Eddie Cheever of the United States in car number 25 has moved up among the leaders. Eddie's been getting better and better in the past couple of years, hasn't he, Jackie?
Very talented young driver, a man that we can expect to see a lot more of in the future. Would be very nice to see the American flag flying and someday your national anthem playing at the end of a Grand Prix. Eddie Cheever might be the man to do it.
Well, of course, there have only been two Americans to win the World Championship, Phil Hill and Mario Andretti. Phil back in 1961 and Mario just a couple of years ago. Look at how close they come to the edge of that wall, Jackie, coming into Jefferson. We have a report right now, however, in the pits from Chris Economaki. Chris?
Well, I have here Andrea De Cesaris, a short race for you. What was the problem?
I had a problem with the transmission, something drive shaft broke.
What about the circuit and all the cars on it?
Well, the circuit is too bumpy, as everyone told before, because the surface is not good at all.
Now, how about your teammate? You root for Giacomelli?
Yes, we look for him.
Okay, Andrea De Cesaris, one of the first men out of the race. Back to you, Jim.
Okay, a disappointed driver, particularly disappointed because he's so young. It hasn't happened to him that often yet. Alain Prost of France still leading the race in car number 15, the yellow and white car at age 27. Remember, he won the first two Grand Prix of this year. Then he had a 21st at Long Beach, 10th at San Marino, 12th at Belgium, 7th at Monte Carlo. So he hasn't had a really good result for quite a while.
Well, of course, the man who's leading the race right now is Alain Prost, because Alain had that dramatic accident so close to the end of the Monaco Grand Prix. He was all set up to win the race, came out of the chicane, drove into the barrier at incredible speed and had himself, in fact, an injury to his ankle, which looked quite nasty and I know concerned him very heavily about the remainder of the season. Luckily, he was able to recover from that.
There he is, still leading the race. As a matter of fact, Jackie, you had a conversation with him that related to that a little bit earlier. Jackie Stewart talking with race leader Alain Prost about that injury problem.
How is your foot after the Grand Prix of Monaco?
I was very bad last week, and I didn't know if I was able to race here. I think it will be difficult to race for me because it's a very bumpy track, and for my foot, it's not the best track for driving. But it's getting better and better, and I think for Sunday it should be okay.
Well, he has to go 2 long hours out on this race course in pretty hot weather inside the cockpit. 2 drivers in a row, Jackie, have mentioned the bumpiness of this track, and it does seem to me you can see the wing going up and down at times. What's your opinion about that? You said you think it's a good race course.
Well, you know, the racetrack itself, in my opinion, and there's Winkelhock, by the way, while we just, for a moment, Winkelhock, in fact, chatting to one of the German journalists, obviously Germany. The great thing about the internationalism of motor racing, all the journalists come from all around the world, but to get back to that problem, it's a question of the surface of the racetrack vis-a-vis these motor cars. There's literally no suspension on those cars left, which I believe is wrong. If you were running any other kind of race car on this surface, the surface would almost be billiard table-like. But Grand Prix cars now have removed the suspension to try and effect this ground effect adhesion. And quite frankly, I think it's the cars that are out of sync rather than the road surface itself. That, of course, is a personal view by me. I think many of the racetracks in the world are constantly being criticized for being bumpy. It's the first time out here in Detroit, and of course things like manhole covers certainly add to the aggravation.
Okay. It's still Prost of France leading in the first Detroit Grand Prix. All right, let's try to pick up a battle here. Whoops, out of the race car. That's car number 2, Riccardo Patrese of Italy.
The man who won the Monaco Grand Prix, he's perfectly all right, you can see. He's jumping well away from his race car and getting behind the barriers, and he's come in contact.
Yeah, he's got the Colombian there, the first Colombian ever to race in Grand Prix, Roberto Guerrero, in the Ensign car.
Well, the two of them obviously have come together. He's all right, too. They're perfectly safe. The drivers are fine. They've dismantled a few of the tires here that are used to slow the cars down more progressively. Steam rising from, obviously, the Ford engine Brabham there. There's a little fire in the back. There's no fireman there. They don't see it from the blind side. They'll get somebody on it right now, I'm sure. Firemen coming.
Yeah, here
right
comes the extinguisher.
They're going to handle this. An oil fire, in fact. You can see it there.
The race, however, continues on. This is not Indianapolis car racing. This is Formula One Grand Prix, unless the incident blocked. Well, wait a minute. We've got a red flag now. We've got a red flag, Jackie. They're going to stop the race.
The red flag has shown, in fact. That is an amazing thing.
Yeah.
It's very unusual to see a red flag now being pulled for a motor race of this kind. They're going to show the red flag. The cars will come past the start-finishing line, and then it will be shown a black flag around the racetrack to be sure that the rescue crews can reach this damaged car. We've only been 13 minutes and 28 seconds into this race here, live in Detroit.
It could make for a rather confusing visual situation, Jackie, because, as you know, what they're going to do is return to the starting grid. This is what we have been told. And go on the starting grid in the order of the standings right now, but the separation in time will not be there. So conceivably, we could see a car that appears to be leading the race that's actually a number of seconds behind. We can keep you at home up to date on who's leading, but it may not appear that he's leading in the race.
Well, there will be a restart.
So there you see the standings at the moment as we've got a red flag, something you don't see too often in Grand Prix racing except for major emergencies, but it has happened, so stand by. Back again live at the Detroit Grand Prix. There are the standings, but the race is at a standstill right now. Prost, Rosberg, Pironi, Mansell, Giacomelli, and Eddie Cheever of the United States in 6th place in the race. So, kind of unusual, and what I would like to know, the information we have not been able to get yet, Jackie, is why would they get a red flag in a Formula One race if that's the only incident out there? It's the only one our cameras have been able to find. The car was off to the side of the road. There was a small fire. It looked like they'd have it out any moment, which I believe they have.
They may well have thought, Jim, that the rescue crews, in fact, were in potential danger, and therefore, for that reason, they would stop the race rather than risk some of their corner marshals being involved with other cars. With the smoke around, perhaps visibility wasn't so good, and I suppose just in the interest of safety, they've decided to do it. It is, in fact, a very unusual occurrence. I haven't seen one of those for a very long time. We had it in Montreal a few years back when there was a blockage of the racetrack on the first corner immediately after the start. But I think here they were looking at their very first Grand Prix, and I suppose they wanted to be safer than sure.
Yeah, well, maybe that's the better course.
Oh, I think so. I don't think there's any doubt about that at all.
Okay, well, as you know, we have two reporters on the race course and in the pits. Chris Economaki in the pits, Sam Posey out on the race course itself, but moving just about wherever he wants. He's kind of a free spirit out there. And let's go down to Sam Posey right now.
Jim, what happened? I was right here in turn one. The car that you see behind me now being carried away, Guerrero, seemed clearly to blame. He was taking a wide line here into turn one, and he turned directly into the Lotus. And that set off the accident, which, of course, subsequently involved Patrese. Now, you see them working on Patrese's car to free it from the tire wall there. It was a very dramatic moment when those of us who were on the outside here of turn one could see fire coming from the back of Patrese's Brabham. But the people that were over there close to it couldn't see that. And it was a very, very tense moment. They finally got to it. It seemed, of course, it was probably only a few seconds, but it seemed to us here like a very long time. I just had a chance to talk to Patrese. He was in no mood to do an interview. I must say I find some of the Europeans very short-fused about this kind of thing, having just been at Indianapolis. But Patrese was shaking his head, and he just walked on. I think that, of course, he's the man that won Monaco, the most recent GP, and he suddenly was having a resurgence and a real chance in the World Championship. So I guess I can understand his disappointment. It all happened very quickly down here, and fortunately, at least as it looks at the moment, nobody was hurt. Back up to you, Jim.
Okay, Sam, thanks very much. Of course, there were some fuses in Indy last week that weren't all that long after the accident before the start of the race. Now, Chris Economaki is down, I believe, with the race leader, Alain Prost. Chris?
Yes, Alain, I saw it when you stopped the brakes of smoking. What kind of condition is your car now?
I think the car is nearly perfect. The handling is very good. The engine is running very good, but my problem is the brakes.
The brakes?
4 or 5 laps, brakes are not so good, and the smoke is not a problem, but brakes are going very hot.
You see Rosberg in your mirror?
No, but I knew that he was about 3 seconds behind me, and it's difficult to lead the race, because if I have some trouble on brakes on this kind of track, it will be very difficult.
You broke a toe in Monte Carlo. How is your foot and your toe now today?
It's not too bad, but it's not perfect. The problem is to do 70 laps here. It's very difficult for me, because when I brake, it's a bit painful on my foot. So it depends on if the race is very hard or not, and if I have some brakes or not, because if the pedal is too long, I have a big problem to brake.
But you're still smiling, and good luck to you, Alain. Back to you, Jim McKay.
Okay, we want to reiterate the situation for you and set it once again. Now, if you are a little bit confused, don't worry about it, because even Prost there didn't have the number of laps correctly. As of yesterday, they said it was a 70-lap race, or 2 hours in running time, whichever comes first. This morning, they changed it to 75 laps, or 2 hours, whichever comes first. It seems certain that they will not run either 70 or 75 laps in 2 hours here. So it's going to be a 2-hour race of running time. But let's do this restart business once again. You tell me if I'm right, that they have stopped the race, they have red flagged it. When they started again, they'll be in the order of standings that they were when the red flag came out. But then it's on a total time basis. It's not like closing up under a restart in NASCAR or Indianapolis. It's going to be a bit confusing.
It'll be a restart in the position that the cars crossed the finishing line the lap before the red flag was shown, so that nobody could take advantage in the last few hundred yards. So, yes, they will restart. They'll start in the positions that the cars crossed that line the lap before, so you'll get, in other words, Eddie Cheever will be in 6th position of the starting grid, unlike what he was in the original position, because that, as you may remember, was, I believe, held by Jack O'Malley. So, therefore, the whole grid has changed, but we will see another start. The start procedure will be exactly the same. Once again, a standing start, as it always is in Grand Prix racing.
However, the first car across the finish line at the finish will not necessarily be the winner, because the time will be added together. They don't do that in American racing. It'll be total running time for each car that counts. A little more news in the pits from Chris Economaki with KK Rosberg.
KK, you were doing extremely well. Are there any places on the circuit where your car is better than Prost Renault?
Everywhere.
You sound like a car salesman. Seriously, where is the best place on the circuit for you?
I don't know. There isn't one particular place on the track. I think I was just a marginal quicker everywhere, and I know that he's on different tires than I am, so, and he's got a turbo, it suffers from brakes, so by pushing him hard we'll be all right, no problem.
Okay, what about the surface of the bumps? Are they more difficult for you, or the same for Prost and you?
They're the same for everybody, you know. Everybody has a head on the shoulders, and that's where it hurts.
You have a confident feel to yourself. You think you'll win today, KK?
Yes, I will.
There you go. KK Rosberg, a confident man waiting for the restart. Back to you, Jim.
He's good everywhere on the course and better than anybody else, and yes, I will. I will win. Look at the shot from the Goodyear blimp high overhead down on the Renaissance Center. We're going to take a commercial break here. Going to go to a commercial in 5, 4, 3, 2, and you may go anytime you wish. Well, there are the cars slowly being reordered on the starting grid, waiting for a restart in the Detroit Grand Prix. It's not raining. There has not been a major accident. There was a rather small incident on the race course. The Cesaris of Italy's car was put out of the race by it. A fire started in the engine compartment after he had an incident with Guerrero of Colombia. And it's very unusual to see a Grand Prix race stopped under these circumstances if you've just joined us right now. But it has been stopped. It will be restarted, and the winner will be determined on a total time basis. Now, right now we've got this sheet, Jackie, and Prost is a matter of 3.2 seconds ahead of K.K. Rosberg of Finland, but on the restart, they'll probably only be a fraction of a second behind. So we'll explain that more as we go along. Right now, I said at the beginning that they'll be going over manhole covers in this race and trolley car tracks and under traffic lights. Well, Sam Posey earlier did a little piece on the obstructions and different things on this track.
The course may appear to be pretty smooth, but when you remember that these ground effect cars, in order to work properly, need incredibly stiff springs. The springs are 10 times stiffer than they are in a passenger car. It suddenly means that any irregularity at all in the track surface transmits a tremendous jarring effect to both the car and the driver. Now, I'm just at a point of the track a little bit after the hairpin at the intersection of Chrysler and Larned Streets, looking at a storm drain that happens to be right in the line where the cars are going to have to go. There's another storm drain just beyond me, also in the line. Now, going over these rough areas, a car will not lose its ground effect suction, but it will be thrown very sharply, and the driver will be a terrific shock to the driver's body, which will tire him considerably as the race goes on. Let's go on around the track and have another look at the rest of it. Further down Larned Avenue, the drivers will encounter a veritable minefield of these manhole covers with steam coming out of them. You'll be crossing this manhole cover at over 130 miles an hour. If you try to miss one, well, then there are others here on the same straightaway. Some of these bumps are severe enough to cause the bottom of the cars to scrape along the track, despite the stiffness of the car's suspension. Finally, here in front of Cobo Hall, these trolley tracks cross the course. Now, we've only seen a few of the many bumps around the track. And if you're only doing a few laps in a racing car, well, they're not too bad. But when you try to race for almost 2 hours, they add immeasurably to the driver's fatigue.
Well, again, while we have the chance to explain this situation, let me put it another way. When this race is restarted, let us suppose that Rosberg is in second place now, trailing by 3.2 seconds, passes Prost, who is the current leader. Well, let's say he takes a 3-second lead. If Rosberg takes a 3-second lead over Prost, he's still 0.2 of a second behind, because it's the total time added together that's going to determine the winner of this first Detroit Grand Prix. It's something different, as we said, for American racing.
Well, that's true, because the penalty, of course, of stopping may help others, may help some of the drivers and some of the cars, but I doubt it very much. I think when we look at the grid and we see the cars, some of them stripped off, Jim, to try and allow the brakes and the engines and the transmissions to cool just a little bit, you see the concern the mechanics have. So seldom do the mechanics ever get an opportunity to have a look at their racing cars after they've done a few hot laps around a Grand Prix racetrack. So they're all hoping now, and I think the fact that Alan Prost mentioned his brakes is a very clear indication that that team is worried. I think the mechanical factor here, the attrition factor, could really be a major issue in this motor race. So I think we can expect not only brake troubles, as I did say earlier, but also probably transmission and potentially suspension problems. Very tight racetrack, very difficult, very demanding. But then again, that's what Grand Prix racing's all about. It's not just a test of the driver, it's also a test of the machinery.
Chris Economaki right now is with the only American driver in the race, Eddie Cheever, who's doing quite well. Chris?
Eddie, you're looking very well on the circuit. Your 12-cylinder car. Is it the right engine for this kind of a circuit?
Our car and engine are going well this morning. I'm a bit annoyed you have to stop the race because everybody else is putting on the same set of tires that we had, and I had a definite advantage over everybody.
Really? Do you think it was right to have stopped the race?
I think for security reasons, it's always good to stop a race. I don't believe in driving in a circuit condition, in a dangerous circuit condition.
One said it's tires A versus tires B on that. How much of a difference does that make?
Enormous. On a 2-hour race, if you run with too soft of a compound after 5-6 laps, you're already in trouble. In fact, the two cars that were in front of me, both the Alfa and the Lotus, were having tire problems, and I was cruising. So I'm very annoyed that they stopped the race on one side, but I think it's always good for safety reasons to see. I didn't really see the reason why they did stop it, though.
Okay, Eddie Cheever, a little bit annoyed. Back to you, Jim.
Okay, and the race still at a standstill. We begin to wonder now why it is taking so long to get the cars reordered and the race restarted, since the incident was not of a major nature. As far as we can see, the track has been completely cleared. However, we're going to have another couple of minutes. That is quite obvious. There's still mechanics and people all over the race course at this point. Jackie Stewart, a little bit earlier, did a piece taking us inside a Formula One race car. Very hard to see inside any modern race car. Everything is so tight now. But he had the opportunity. Let's take a look at that piece.
A Formula One Grand Prix car is a slick and almost perfect aerodynamic shape for the job it does. But underneath this thin skin is in fact a mass of engineering wizardry. With the fiberglass bodywork off, you can see the confines of where the driver sits. With the bodywork on, it would cover over this water radiator on this side, the oil radiator over here. The steering wheel, very small. It's only 10.5 inches diameter, mildly padded and very thin, allows the driver to go from lock to lock and then go to full left lock, for example, to get round the tight hairpin. Not much to confuse the driver in this dashboard, only 1 gauge left. The rev counter up to 11,000 revs in this Ford Cosworth engine. This light here only comes on if the oil pressure drops too low. On the right-hand side of the cockpit here, an adjustment for brake balance. If you want more brake on the rear, you do this. If you want more braking efficiency on the front, you turn it this way. Down here further on the right is the gear shift. 5 forward gears, 1 gear for reverse. On the left-hand side of the dashboard, this here is a self-starter. If the driver spins out on the racetrack, stalls his engine, he would pull that to restart it. Right here is the fire extinguisher switch. That sets off an extinguisher in the cockpit and also around the engine. The ignition switch, an electric fuel pump to start the engine up with. This here is a light that, in the case of heavy rain, a high-intensity light goes on the rear so that cars following can see the car in front. This here is a cold start, would you believe? In cold mornings, to try and assist it, a retarder for the ignition to start. Right down here, they call it the kill switch. In the case of an emergency, this would come into operation, switch everything off electronically. Seat belts, they're made for emergencies. Just as we should always wear them in our street cars, race drivers always do wear them. 6-point fastener, 2 between the legs to stop him from submarining or going under his seat belts. 2 shoulder harnesses and, of course, the waistband. Now, these would normally hold a driver into a car. Recently, there was a dreadful accident in Belgium where Gilles Villeneuve died and was thrown out of the car. But that was an extremely unusual accident because the car totally destroyed itself around the driver. If an accident does occur and fire is involved, there is a medical air supply that plugs into the helmet of that driver. This is not oxygen because oxygen does burn. A driver can be trapped in a car for up to 1 minute while his rescuers try to get him out.
Okay, Jackie Stewart earlier in the cockpit. There's the Renaissance Center once again. The view from the Goodyear Blimp Enterprise from Pompano Beach, Florida. There it is. Captained by Captain Mike Fitzpatrick from Newport, Rhode Island. Enterprise, Goodyear's newest blimp, by the way. One of only 4 blimps in the world. My goodness, I can remember way back in World War II, and the U.S. Navy used to have a whole fleet of blimps that would patrol, Jackie, out in front doing anti-submarine patrol. But now it's down to 4. And here are the standings. In the first Detroit Grand Prix, Alain Prost of France, then Keke Rosberg of Finland, Didier Pironi of France, Nigel Mansell of Great Britain, Giacomelli of Italy, there you saw the other one, Niki Lauda of Austria, Lafitte, Daly of Ireland, Arnoux of France, De Angelis of Italy, Jochen Maas of West Germany. The standings 7th through 12th place there. Again, we're going to take a commercial break and return to the streets of Detroit. Well, here we are. Detroit, Michigan is the scene. There you see the Detroit River behind the superimposition. Boats out for a Sunday afternoon cruise have stopped, all of them trying to get some kind of a look at the world's first Detroit Grand Prix motor race. Well, we'd like to be watching it now, too, but there's been a very unusual circumstance. Normally, you think of Formula One Grand Prix racing as being very different from American racing. American racing, either at Indianapolis or in NASCAR, will stop the moment 1 drop of rain falls, in essence, and for other reasons. But Formula One, one of the big selling points of the sport has always been we ride unless the race course is totally blocked. Well, the race course was not blocked. There was an incident out there. There was a minor fire in the engine of one of the cars, which was put out quite quickly. But before that happened, the red flag came out with great speed, and the race was stopped. It's been stopped for better than a half an hour now. Latest word we have is that it may be a good many more minutes before they restart again, but that's not official. Here are the standings in the race. You see 7th through 12th place there, right there. That's not the leaders, 7th through 12th. Niki Lauda, the former world champion, doing quite well. Sam Posey has been wandering around at various areas on the course. He might have some information for us. Sam?
Well, Jim, you know, it just seems interesting to me that we've been talking here about an enormously sophisticated sport. Jackie mentioned this at the beginning. These cars are probably the most expensive automobiles in the world. And yet, what happens when an accident occurs? They run into these old tires that have been put around the track. Look at these things. The tread is all worn away. They're complete junkers. This seems like the total contrast to the sophistication of the racing cars. And yet, these tire walls, as they're called, tire barriers, are some of the most effective ways known to man to arrest a car that's out of control. Not only the this simple method of strapping them together with a nylon strap keeps them from exploding apart and rolling all over the racetrack. It's kind of a small thing, and it's fairly new, curiously, in the world of Grand Prix, only the last 4 or 5 years. And if you're thinking, well, maybe we should have something like this at Indianapolis, it doesn't really work except in slow turns. If you careened into this at a very high speed, the tires would go all over the place. If you think back to Gordon Smiley's crash at Indianapolis, it really wouldn't work there. But it's ideal for city courses like this, and this accident we had this afternoon would have extensively damaged all 3 cars that were involved without these tires. As it was, they were hardly hurt at all, which I think, Jim, is good news. Practice makes perfect, maybe even in the safety area.
Sam, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
You were down there. You saw the incident occur. Would you have red flagged it?
Well, I like what Eddie Cheever said, Jim. Why take a chance? Everything is new here. You see, Patrese car was on fire. We have to realize that, and it could have exploded suddenly. I mean, there was quite a blaze at the back. I think that the decision may very well have come from somebody that was on my side, or had been relayed to the chief steward from somebody that was on my side of that and saw the fire. Nobody else did. I think the fire made it a major risk. Actually, as for whether the track was blocked, no, it really wasn't. There was plenty of room to race by. The incident was all on the outside of the track. You can see there the whiteness where Patrese went in. The other cars were beyond that, well out of the line.
Okay, thanks very much, Sam Posey, out there on the race course as we continue to come to you live from the streets of Detroit. Now, again, maybe you joined us thinking, well, I'm going to watch the second hour of the Detroit Grand Prix. If you have just joined us by any chance, the race has been stopped. It's been stopped for a good long while now. It appears that it may be, I don't know, another 10 or 15 minutes perhaps before they restart the race. They only did 6 laps. Prost of France is leading, and Rosberg of Finland is in second place. When they resume, they'll start in their order of position in the race on a starting grid, but we'll fill you in on that. We're going back to New York right now. We'll return later. Live in Detroit. Still no racing going on. You may hear the sound of racing engines, but they're warming them up. They've been doing minor repairs to the cars. What are they allowed to do at this point? There's a car on the race course, for example.
Mansell, the car of Mansell, the Lotus, coming back onto what they call the dummy grid. What will happen now is that those cars will be allowed to have any work done on them at all.
Anything
even if even if they had time to change an engine, Jim,
which they don't,
but they could have done. They can change the skirts of the aerodynamic assistance. They can change tires. They can fill it up with gas. They can do anything at all. Of course, the cars that are already out of the race, such as Patrese's car and Guerra's car that were involved in the little incident that stopped the race. And incidentally, I've just had the message on. I spoke to Patrese when I went out onto the starting grid there. What occurred was Guerra spun. John Watson, who was behind him in the McLaren, had to brake very, very heavily, and Patrese, to avoid hitting Watson, got it into the marbles or out onto the loose stuff, lost control, spun off and hit the wall. So that was the reason for the problem of taking out Patrese, who, as you may remember, won the Grand Prix of Monaco, seen, of course, in ABC's Wide World of Sports. So now the cars are being serviced by the mechanics. They can do anything they like to them, as I said. A lot of them have taken...
If they could fix Patrese's car, could it go back in the race?
No. He is officially out of the race. He's finished. He cannot come back in because the red flag did not go out until they passed the start-finishing line. So he is officially out of the race.
You have complicated rules in Formula One, Jackie.
Well,
I thought it was a simple sport.
It's for simple men, but it's not a simple sport. No, but nowadays, now the mechanics are really working hard in the cars, trying to get the temperatures down, of course, topping them up with fuel, trying to get... They can change tires as well, so therefore any tire temperature that was affected before, if the driver felt that his tires were not behaving correctly, they can, of course, change them. The bodywork in the Tag Williams cars, for instance, were all taken off so that the cars could breathe more easily, the water coolers could cool more quickly, etc.
Okay, only 6 laps have gone by, another scheduled 69, but it'll really be a 2-hour total time race. Well, let's see, they're going to start in a matter of minutes now, about 12, 13 minutes. Why don't we take a break and then return to Detroit? Okay, back again live in Detroit. Jim McKay with Jackie Stewart here. The race has still not been restarted. The first information from the stewards was that they'd restart about 3:20 Eastern time, then 3:25, then 3:30. They're now saying the last word we have from them is 3:25. As you can imagine, all sorts of furious rearrangements going on. As they said, once again, 3:35, the most recent figure they gave us. Standings in the race, of course, remaining the same as you see. There will be a restart in the order in which they were placed in the race at the time the red flag went out after a comparatively minor incident. So we're going to take one more break, then come back, and I think they'll be started fairly soon. Back again in Detroit, where the latest word is now, I believe I just heard them say 5 minutes they're talking about for the restart of the race. As you look from high overhead, and now you're back in the commentary position with Jackie Stewart and me. So the incident was right down here shortly after the first turn, Jackie. Everybody now trying to get revved up again for the race, having tried to redo their travel arrangements and things. Nobody more anxious to get back home again, by the way, than our man Sam Posey, whose wife Ellen had their first child at about 3:30 Friday afternoon, and he's just waiting to get home. John Jameson Posey, welcome to the world. However, why don't we take another look at this race course, Jackie? You explained it to us once before. Now with the point of view of what has happened and transpired in the race to this point, why don't we look at it once more again? A point of view, subjective view of the course in Detroit.
Well, the car we're in fact going to be looking at, and there you see the graphic of the Grand Prix of Detroit. I remind you, it's a 2.5-mile racetrack with 20 corners around it. Very tough on the driver, very tough on the car. And in fact, the car that we're sitting in right now with our camera, so to speak, is the car of Alan Prost, who not only is leading the World Championship, but leading this very race, so it's very apt. And it's just at this corner, in fact, that the incident occurred. Guerrero spun, and John Watson braked very hard, and Patrese went into him right about here, in fact. So Alan Prost's car being driven now and accelerating hard with about 600 horsepower. Now, this was a warm-up lap for Alan Prost, so you're hearing engine sounds that you would not normally hear. We raced towards this beautiful Renaissance Centre, then turn right and go uphill a little bit, and this is where road racing is so different from the ovals of the stock cars or Indianapolis, and around these right-hand bends as well as left-hand bends, and seldom do you have a church in the approach to one of your corners. It was in the corner coming up now that the first lap incident occurred, where one of the drivers went straight on there. So it's a very slow corner, about 30 miles an hour here, so no damage was done. They accelerate along to Congress, and again, the sort of between 500 and 600 brake horsepower really come into play, and you can almost burn rubber as you accelerate along this straight stretch to about 140, brake hard through this left-hand bend, and it's on those hard braking sections that the brakes really get hot and can potentially cause a problem, particularly to the Alan Prost Renault car, because it has to carry more fuel than the normally aspirated Ford engines, for example, so they're a little heavier. So Alan Prost is going to have to be a little bit gentle with his braking and often with his transmission, because here we're accelerating towards the Cobo Hall here, the convention center, in second gear. We'll remember all that horsepower, churning that rear suspension, churning that transmission, and again it gets heavily bumped over these trolley rails there as it goes down towards the confines, and the great sound and resilience of these, in this case, 6-cylinder engines. Some of them are 8 cylinders, and the Alfa Romeos have 12 cylinders, a normally aspirated 12-cylinder for the Alfa Romeo. De Cesare is out of the race, one of the leading Alfa drivers, and then they go through this great tunnel where, of course, difficult for light if oil is on the racetrack. Another slow right-hander in second gear, followed immediately as we go onto the Detroit River and accelerate towards the chicane, which is the final corner here. You can go right round the chicane, as Prost's car will, or turn left into the pit lane, and of course many of the cars went in there for service. We're back now, as you can see, on the racetrack. Many of the drivers back in, and there you see the order of finish. The lap before, we had a red flag here in Detroit. If some of you who have just joined us did not know, the race was stopped. Nobody was injured, but we're just about ready for a restart.
We might point out that the reason the delay has been so long, we might say again, is because of the regulations of Formula One. They have to wait a certain length of time. We'll be back.
And Winkelhock, disconsolately after a fine 5th position, is in the pits. Well, to the confusion of everybody, it got sorted out in the end, and an hour later, we now see Alain Prost in his car for the second grid. It looks rather more than 14 as I look down the 2 rows of the grid from our commentary position. Yes, we reckon it's, thank you, James, it looks like 18 cars to us. Well, there in pole position, Prost, alongside him, Rosberg. And away they go around the warm-up lap.
They come round, they break down into what's really, it calls itself 2 corners, turn 1 and turn 2. It's left-hander, quite open in the entry there. They're still slowing down through this bit, then it tightens up, and they go into quite a tight, narrow exit out of there, which is not a bad thing to have a bit of space to funnel into for the first corner when everything's a little bit crowded. Accelerating away down the straight into turn 3, which is a right-angle right-hander. The circuit is characterized by an awful lot of very straightforward right angles, very slow, in fact very narrow, you see there, narrower than most street circuits even, and it's very much squirt it, stop it, turn it and squirt it again operation for drivers here. Here they come down to one of the really tight first gear hairpins, immediately turning right out of it. We're now moving on to turn 7, the left-hander again, another right angle. See, at least the track opens out a little there, they're getting a little bit quicker. Then they wind a little bit past the Congress Center, which is on both sides of the track there, down into sharp left on turn 8, then they turn right again very sharply. Second gear stuff. The second gear, of course, will take a terrible bashing in the gearbox, being constantly beaten in and out, and all that load going through using a low second gear, they'll be for the tight circuit. Transmissions will be at a premium. We've already seen drive shaft go onto Cesaris's car, and I should think we'll probably see a few more transmissions fail to take the distance. Now they're coming down one of the longer straights on the circuit to turn 12. They go through there, left hand. Then they turn left-handed again through turn 13, similar corner. Winding around again, where they're just about to come out onto the riverfront. There they go through turn 15, out onto the riverfront, into the tunnel. They're now headed back towards the pits, but they've got a couple of little hiccups, little slow hiccups on the way. So as you can see, a very busy circuit indeed for the drivers. Not really any serious amount of rest. Very hard on the machinery because it's all stop, start, squirt stuff, but not quite as hard on the driver as some circuits because we haven't got the long radius sweeping curves where the cars can really build up the big G. They won't be putting quite such big G forces here, but at the same time the drivers are going to be pretty tired because they're up and down through the gearbox all the time. Concentration, as usual in the street circuit, at an absolute premium when you're surrounded by a tunnel of walls where 1 foot wrong, off comes the corner of the car, and 3-wheelers don't win Grand Prix.
Right, thanks, James. Now, I remind you, everybody, watch the car on the left, the white and green Williams of Keke Rosberg. The first turn and the approach to it is absolutely critical to him. There is the pole position man, Alain Prost, who was leading part 1 when it was stopped on lap 7. And Keke Rosberg with his 3-litre engine, watch the lights as ever. The only circuit in the world where normal traffic can go through as the race is running. Go! And Rosberg was left, and Prost gets away beautifully now. Is Rosberg, and Pironi is right up with them. And Prost and Rosberg fighting for the lead, and Prost has got it as he did in the first part. So it is Prost and Rosberg and Pironi, and then behind Pironi is Bruno Giacomelli. Then it is one of the Talbots, and Nigel Mansell is coming up well. It's Prost, Rosberg, Pironi, Giacomelli, Cheever, I think it is. Yes, it must be Eddie Cheever. Down to the hairpin, and it's still Prost, Rosberg, Pironi. Giacomelli, Cheever's up a place. There's Arnoux trying to fight his way through, pushing by Nigel Mansell at the side, and Niki Lauda going through. And they're all round the hairpin successfully on the first lap.
Well, a little bit of bumping and boring there. Mansell got pushed so wide, so far out, he didn't have enough knock to make the corner and had to actually spin the wheels to bring the back round, and nearly got in the wall for no other reason. A great start by Keke Rosberg. He certainly used his best endeavours. He got away from the line first of those three front runners, but he was then swallowed up for power down to the first corner by the turbocharged engine. He had his nose in front, but he didn't have the line. He couldn't get any daylight between him and Prost. Prost, very cool, very experienced now, drives with like a man with considerably more years experience than he has got, held on to things, and he's got Rosberg where he wants him, behind him, and now all he has to do is defend. Well, I say that, he's got an awful lot of defending to do and an awful long way to go, but he's done, on this sort of street circuit, really the lion's share of the work already.
Well, almost one lap completed as they come out of the Atworth Water Tunnel down to turn 16. Now on and into the start and finish straight, round the kink. And Alain Prost leads into the start and finish straight, up to turn 1 and 2 again. Now, Alain Prost has done exactly what he needed to do with Rosberg in second place. He has managed to get clear on the first lap. And how clear, because that is quite a cushion. That is over a second at the end of one lap, which around a street circuit like this takes a heck of a lot of doing. In fact, the gap was just on 2 seconds as he went round the corner there. Rosberg second, Pironi third.
Yes, looking at the first heat in the earlier part of the race that we saw, it does look as if Prost has he had a little bit in hand, I felt then, over Rosberg. Rosberg seemed to be on the limit, and he's used that to advantage there. He was resting before, but now he's just going away very well indeed. He was on the pole. He's obviously in command of this race. I think he'll go away, give himself a little lead, and then probably do as he did in the first heat, try and take it easy, because he's got a long way to go, and physical and mechanical endurance are going to be the order of the day.
And this, of course, is exactly what Alain Prost did at Monaco. He built up a lead, and then in the 74th lap out of 76, he lost it because of a combination of Derek Daly's oil and rain. So Keke Rosberg is in second place, Pironi is third, Giacomelli there in the Alfa Romeo is in fourth place, then Eddie Cheever. René Arnoux in the second of the Renaults is in sixth position, so both the turbo Renaults are well up into World Championship point standings at the present moment, albeit with a long way to go. And they have Niki Lauda there. That's interesting. The caption shows 7 laps, of course. They are adding on the laps that are being done in this second half to the 6 laps that were finished in the first section of the race. And we were expecting the race to last 64 laps. There is Cheever in 5th position, followed by Arnoux in 6th place. Now let's see who's in 7th position. And we've got computer working, bringing the tyres together as René Arnoux tries to challenge Eddie Cheever in 5th place. The V12 Talbot, the V6 turbocharged Renault, 5th and 6th places. And a wonderful, almost aerial view as we look down on them from one of the skyscrapers. There are some extremely good camera positions here, and there is Niki Lauda in 7th place in the Marlboro McLaren car. And René Arnoux is really challenging Cheever. Meantime, Giacomelli is pulling away a bit. There is the red and white McLaren behind, the MP4 car. And now the leader, Alain Prost, on lap 3 in this rerun section. That means lap 9 altogether when you take into account the first part. And we'll give you a time difference on Alain Prost as he goes past us. But at the moment, the gap is some 2.84 seconds. And the gap between Keke Rosberg and Didier Pironi is 1.6 seconds. So there's about 4 seconds separating the first and third men. Into the tunnel for the 3rd time in this restarted race. And Alain Prost is showing all his class. And he really does deserve a win. He has had another win, I should say, because after all, he has 5 wins already in the last 2 years. 2 this year, 3 last year. Another lap completed. Prost, and he's easing out all the time the gap between himself and Keke Rosberg. Keke Rosberg must be getting very bored with second position. He's had it for so long in so many races this year. By the way, Eliseo Salazar, the Chilean driver, actually started the race, hit one of the barriers, a glancing blow on the first lap, and rejoined. He's gone into the pits in our sight, as has Michele Alboreto, the Tyrrell driver who has driven so well this year and had bad luck at Monaco. Michele Alboreto, who's in 7th position in the World Championship. There is Prost. This is lap 4, and when I give you lap numbers, it is for the second part of the race. Remember, 6 others in the first part.
Well, looking at the way Prost's driving at the moment, it looks horribly like a Prost benefit to me. I think I get the feeling he's already eased up a little and is not going absolutely flat out. He's driving a conservative type race, conserving himself in his car, and it must be very depressing for Keke Rosberg, following behind, having this constant view of Prost's rather unattractive exhaust pipe. At least it's unattractive to you when you're chasing it and trying to get past it. And he's seen an awful lot of it this year. Prost has really been the outstanding driver-car combination with his Renault throughout the season in Grand Prix racing. Has surprisingly few results to date, and funnily enough, one of his 2 wins was a luck out in that it was on technicalities, and he got handed after the win after a disqualification. So anyway, he certainly deserves 2 wins. Nobody can argue with that. But as I say, he's boring us all a bit by being too dominant of this race, and it's a pity because it doesn't look as if Rosberg's going to get back on terms and give him a straight fight.
Well, there is Rosberg, and Pironi still in 3rd place. Bad news for those of you wide world of sport viewers who are interested in the John Player Special Lotus mark, because Nigel Mansell is dropping back. He's in 9th position, and on lap 5 in this restarted race, Alain Prost, that we are looking at now, leads with Keke Rosberg in 2nd place, with Pironi in 3rd position, with Giacomelli in 4th place, with Chiva in 5th position, with Arnoux 6th and Lauda 7th. In 8th position is Derek Daly. In 9th place is Jacques Lafitte. In 10th position is Jochen Maas. In 11th place is Nigel Mansell, dropping back. And in 12th position is Mansell's teammate Elio De Angelis. That is lap 5, and we're almost at the end of it, you see. And it looked to me as though Didier Pironi is closing up slightly on Keke Rosberg. Meantime, our producer is favouring Alain Prost, who leads. Into the tunnel for the 5th time, Alain Prost. Out of it. Down to turn 17. The right-hander out of it. Now up to the kink, which is turn 18. The left, right, left, left, right, left, and out of it. Past the pits complex to complete lap 5. Alain Prost leads. There is Rosberg in the background. There is Pironi, there is Giacomelli. So it's Rosberg 2nd, Pironi 3rd. In the red and white car is Bruno Giacomelli. Then in the Talbot, Eddie Chiva. Now René Arnoux. And behind René Arnoux is Niki Lauda in the Marlboro McLaren car in 7th position, chased by Derek Daly. There is Chiva, that is. And Giacomelli closing up on Pironi. Pironi has less of an advantage on this circuit against the Alfa Romeo than he would have on a fast circuit, because the Alfa Romeo is very quick indeed and has got extremely good low-speed torque, the V12 engine. And Giacomelli is another driver, like Alain Prost, who is very much after a win. Giacomelli led at Watkins Glen the year before last, the last Grand Prix of the 1980 series, and since then the Alfa Romeo has been dramatically improved. It's the centre of these 3 cars in 4th position. There's Eddie Chiva 5th, and the V12 Alfa Romeo has been enormously improved by Gérard Ducarouge, the ex-Talbot Ligier team manager, who's designed a completely new car, and look how Giacomelli's pressing.
Yes, Giacomelli's going very well indeed now. He's really climbing all over the back of the Ferrari, and of course, just to add spice to that battle for the Italian community out there in Australia, I know there's a terrifically large Italian community who are very, very keen on motor racing. They will know only too well that there is massive traditional rivalry between Ferrari and Alfa Romeo, so whoever you're rooting for, this is a good battle.
And into lap 7 they go now, with Alain Prost still leading, but a good battle behind him, and Keke Rosberg, who is second for third position. There's Cheever, who is fifth. Behind Eddie Cheever, you should see the red and white car of Niki Lauda if we dwell for a moment on one of the corners. But that's Eddie Cheever, fifth position, Lauda in sixth place then, Prost leading, Rosberg second, Pironi third, in fourth position Bruno Giacomelli, in fifth position Cheever, in sixth position Lauda, and as far as cars are concerned, with Giacomelli now, as James rightly says, climbing all over the Scarlet Ferrari, turbocharged 1.5 litre Ferrari of Didier Pironi, and trying now to go through, but he won't get past there. Trying to pass somebody on a right-angled corner is difficult, but when it's Pironi, it's quite impossible, and Cheever now is having a go at Giacomelli.
Yes, a wonderful demonstration of the power of the Ferrari. They climb all over him in the corners, closing right up against Giacomelli. Now you watch that lead stretch away. Ferrari just has a huge amount of power. The turbocharged engine there, I would say, is a good bit more powerful than the Renault's, but the Renault's got a much better chassis. Here they are, climbing all over each other, and there's this Cheever climbing in all over the back just to add spice to the thing. Pretty good close-up shot there. The camera didn't quite have the call in the frame, but excellent stuff. Now we're going to see the Ferrari once more stride away, and it does make it impossible to pass in that situation, really. You can see that he's pulling anything up to 6 or 7 lengths on any sizable straight, and you can't pass from that far back. You've got to have your nose alongside at least to have a stab, especially against the driver of Pironi's experience.
And there, look back a bit, and you see Niki Lauda. Now, because Pironi is holding up Giacomelli, and because Giacomelli is holding up Cheever, Niki Lauda, with a comparatively clear circuit in front of him, is closing up all the time on the third, fourth, fifth men. Niki Lauda in sixth position. Still Prost leading, still Rosberg in second place. There is Pironi, Giacomelli, Cheever, third, fourth, fifth. Watch, though, for the red and white car of Niki Lauda with the red rear wing. That's the way to tell the difference from a distance between the seemingly identical red and white Alfa Romeo and the red and white Marlboro McLaren. Same livery, distinguished by the different colours of the aerofoils at the front and the rear. They're black carbon fibre on the Alfa.
Another problem, of course, the drivers suffer from, there's Cheever having a little look, but not really there. Another problem the drivers suffer from on a circuit like this is when trying to overtake, they've got a very, very restricted visibility because their heads are only about the height of the wall, so they can't see over the wall or see anything there. And of course, when the circuit's so narrow, their vision is basically filled by the car in front. You can see where Giacomelli was then right up under the Ferrari's wing. He can't see much of the corner. He can't see where it is unless he comes out. And he's then still got the Ferrari in the way of some of his reference points. So this visibility problem and lack of reference points on the circuit, because you're in this tunnel of either cement or metal barrier with reflection even off the barrier, is a problem peculiar to street circuits, and it's a big one when you put it on top of all the other problems there are for passing.
Well, now, our American producer is very sensibly staying with the most exciting battle in the whole race, and with Prost leading and Rosberg on his own in second place, Niki Lauda in sixth place. There, the fourth of these cars, is closing all the time on Eddie Cheever, who is fifth, Giacomelli, who is fourth, and Pironi, who is third. And you've seen the caption which told you that Niki Lauda is the fastest man on the circuit. Alain Prost is now 3.6 seconds ahead of Keke Rosberg. Pironi, Giacomelli beat Cheever Lauda. And the gap between Cheever and Lauda is 1.03 seconds. And I do not think it is going to take ex-double world champion Niki Lauda all that long to nibble away at that. But then Lauda is going to have the problem that's already facing Cheever and Giacomelli, how to get past the man in front. Where can you do it on a circuit like this, with cars that are as wide as this and whose performance is as similar as it is?
Nowhere is the answer to that, quite honestly. With the Ferrari's superior power out in front, it does, without any doubt, Pironi is going to have to make a mistake. Either that or, I mean, the only chance is for Giacomelli to have a total kamikaze run at him, of which Giacomelli has proved himself quite capable in the past, I should add. But I think it would have to be kamikaze even beyond Giacomelli's potential. Here, quite honestly. No, you've got to wait for a mistake or a problem with the Ferrari. I think the Ferrari is probably running pretty hard on the tyres. It's a very heavy car, puts a lot more power than the Ford engine cars through its rear tyres, and it seemed to slow down in the previous heat as the laps wore on, and we're now running into that sort of distance. And but of course, the big problem then is if he's going slow around the corners, he still can't be passed. He squirts it away down the straights, and it just builds a bigger train, as we've seen so many times in the last 18 months since Ferrari introduced these turbocharged cars. Then they haven't yet produced a good chassis. This one is a major improvement on the dreadful abortion that they turned out last year, which was an excuse for a chassis. But it's by no means a good chassis. They've got a more powerful engine than the Renault, and the Renault is up front driving away very smoothly.
Well, I can tell you, as we look out of the box, that Keke Rosberg is actually starting to catch Alain Prost. He's putting in a charge. The gap that you saw on the caption of 7 seconds has now been reduced, and Keke Rosberg is now 6 seconds behind. So he's gained a second and a half on the race leader. But even if he gets on Prost's tail, as you can see from what Pironi and Giacomelli and Cheever and Lauda are doing, Prost has only got to hold his racing line confidently, and he is now more than experienced and competent enough to do that, to make it virtually impossible for Rosberg to get past. So we are now watching a race where a lot of drivers are trying to pressure a driver or drivers in front of them to make a mistake in the knowledge that there's no other way they're going to get past.
Yeah, it's a big problem with trying to put pressure on like that to somebody like Pironi, who's now had plenty of experience of driving the turbocharged Ferrari, is of course that there is no pressure. When you know you can go any speed you like round a corner and then still squirt it down the next straight and just walk away from the opposition, thereby rendering them no chance at the next corner, you're not under any pressure. The time, of course, where there is pressure is when you're in a car that's not very powerful on the straight, and you know you've got to get that corner absolutely dead right, maximum speed to maintain your momentum up to the next corner. This is not the case with Pironi. He's under no pressure. The only pressure he's suffering from is throwing rather a pig chassis around. Ferrari have never been great chassis builders. This is one of their better efforts, but it can't be a lot of fun to drive.
A better effort designed, incidentally, by the man with the unlikely but real name of Dr. Harvey Postlethwaite, who is an Englishman and who was taken on by Ferrari to make up for the deficiencies of the home engineers. Now, on lap 11 in this part 2, to which you have to add 6 laps from part 1 and do a complicated time equation, and with Didier Pironi in 3rd position.
Yes, I was going back to what you're saying about Harvey Postlethwaite. Certainly Ferrari, it was a wise move for them to try and get into some of the British technology as far as chassis building is concerned, which has always been superior, whilst they picked probably the best engineer in the business in terms of producing cars very well, engineering them very well. Harvey Postlethwaite has never been one of our top designers. He has never, in fact, designed a winning car for Grand-Prix racing. Cars he's designed have won a couple of Grand Prix, but they've never been competitive. The Hesketh was his first effort. We won one race with that, but that was against the form. The car wasn't really up to it, and his subsequent efforts were never winning cars. He won a car with Jody Scheckter, with the Wolf car he designed, but again, it was through good preparation, good engineering, rather than through being fast, and being well driven, of course, in Jody's case.
Now, something I can tell you significant from our lap chart and personal observation is that René Arnoux, in the second of the Renaults, and Alain Prost is leading in the first, is gradually slipping down through the field. He was in 7th position. He's now in 9th place, and ahead of him are Derek Daly, who is 7th, and Jacques Lafitte, who is 8th, both of whom have somehow scrambled past Arnoux, while we have been concentrating on this battle. And on lap 11, to which you have to add the 6 laps from part 1, in the lead, Alain Prost still. Keke Rosberg in 2nd position, about 6 seconds behind the leader. The battle for 3rd position, which you are looking at now, with Didier Pironi in the Ferrari in 3rd place. Bruno Giacomelli in the Alfa Romeo 4th. Eddie Cheever in the Talbot 5th. Niki Lauda in the McLaren in 6th position. Then, as I said, Derek Daly in 7th position, Jacques Lafitte 8th, René Arnoux slipping down in 9th position. In 10th place, Jochen Maas in the March. In 11th place, John Watson in the McLaren. And in 12th place is Nigel Mansell. And as we look at Niki Lauda, I draw your attention to one significant point. And that is that Niki seems to be, to me, to be keeping a slightly cautious distance from the 3 cars in front of him. It looks to me as though Lauda is not quite as close to Cheever as Cheever is to Giacomelli and Giacomelli is to Pironi. In other words, Niki Lauda is watching points.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I think not so much watching points, Murray. I think with his experience, he realises that there's nothing he can do to pass these boys. So I think he's, for the time being, he's sitting back and letting the young lions sort it out, hoping they might make a little mistake to make a gap for him, because that's really his best chance of moving up places. Because, well, he's closed up there a bit, but I think he's conserving his strength for later in the race. He knows that it's going to be a very long, hard battle, and I don't think he particularly wants to pass, say, Eddie Cheever and just get himself in the middle, which would be much harder work for him. He'd much rather see Cheever and Giacomelli, and there is Cheever having a go around the outside of Giacomelli, but not succeeding, I don't think. No, Giacomelli always had the inside of the corner, but they're beginning to scrap a bit now and letting Pironi get away, which might prompt Lauda then to do something about it and try and move up. But he is the quickest car on the circuit, Lauda. He's put up the fastest lap in this race so far. So I think it's, unless something's gone wrong with his car, we can't say he's struggling to hold on. Murray's absolutely right. He's watching.
Well, you may be confused about how the results are going to be arrived at. Let me tell you that the times of the individual drivers that all finish the first and second parts will be added together, and obviously the lowest time will be the winner, and so on. And at the present moment, I can tell you from our computer information that Keke Rosberg, on an accumulation of the times of the first part and the part that is run so far in the second half of the race, not the second half, second part of the race, is only 5 seconds behind Alain Prost. So it's still a very, very close thing. But I suspect we're going to need some pretty delicate computer work to sort the results out. And it's heartening that at the present moment, most of the runners are still very much in the race. I was saying earlier on that with only a few starting in comparison with the full 26 who were supposed to go at part 2, we were expecting decay to set in pretty early. Well, thank heavens it hasn't yet set in to any great extent. Elio De Angelis has disappeared off our lap charts and we haven't seen him anywhere around the circuit. But it is still then on lap 13, Alain Prost leading, Keke Rosberg second, Prost in the Renault, Rosberg in the Williams. Third, Pironi Ferrari. Fourth is Giacomelli Alfa Romeo. Fifth, Eddie Cheever there in the blue Talbot. Sixth, Niki Lauda in the McLaren. Then, still in 7th position, Derek Daly. And Daly, too, is starting to close up. He's fought his way past Arnoux, who delayed him a lot. And René Arnoux is still in 9th position. A very unhappy man. I seem to say this every race, but Arnoux has had the most appalling luck this season. And they go virtually into that left-right sequence of bends together, those 4 cars. And there, out of the race, is the ATS of, let's check, the ATS of Eliseo Salazar. So Winkelhock failed to start, and Salazar, the Chilean driver, out of the race. I spoke too soon when I said that the decay hadn't started. Salazar, not the happiest of men in Grand Prix racing at the present moment. Although he finished 9th in South Africa, he didn't finish in Brazil or Long Beach or Belgium or Monaco. He did finish in 5th place at San Marino, and now he is out in Detroit. And Prost, we are conscious all the time, has got this damaged foot after Monaco. You remember that tremendous crash he had at Monaco, and the ATS is right on the racing line. Let us hope that the marshal somehow can drag it out of the way, as Rosberg is right up with the lead.
Yes, they're not heavy. They should be able to manhandle that just back a little bit down the track and clear it off the racing line to give the drivers a clear exit. Would certainly help. It's interesting because after Prost had pulled away a little bit.
Not doing this by design. He's not letting Keke Rosberg get this close because he's that confident. In my mind, he must be having little problems, because if I were that race driver, I would rather build up more of a cushion, if you could put it that way, because if anything did go wrong, or I got held up in traffic of slower cars, then I would want to just have a little more breathing space. So right now, Keke Rosberg is putting a lot of pressure, in my mind, on to the Renault of Alain Prost.
And notice how he is gaining. Rosberg is gaining on the turns, and Prost still with the turbo moving it out of the straight. We'll take a break and come back to Detroit Live.
And here we've got a replay. In the background, you'll see Salazar's car just go straight on. He obviously went a little bit wide on the corner, got the super zit, and there we go, crunch. Off comes the right-hand front wheel, car buried in the wall, Salazar completely unhurt. Rosberg, and so with this 3+ second lead that he's got from the previous heat, he may have opted just to take a pretty steady race at a nice steady pace and just make sure he makes no mistakes, thereby rendering the old story with a turbocharged power, making it impossible for Rosberg to pass, and he's got a 3-second cushion just in case Rosberg does get past, and he can then go for a big chase.
We talk a lot about tyres in Grand Prix racing these days because they're so critical, and a few words on the situation here could be highly relevant, because the two giant tyre companies of Michelin and Goodyear roughly split the Grand Prix teams between them. And look at that, Rosberg going through, or trying to. Now Rosberg has come right back from a 3 seconds gap which had started, and now he's really harrying, kicking Alain Prost.
He was certainly using the surprise tactics there. He surprised me anyway, that was for sure. I certainly didn't expect an attempt there, but whilst it looked like an awful long shot and very ambitious, it wasn't so far off coming off. So Rosberg is obviously keeping well on his toes and thinking well, because there was no doubt that that was an attempt to catch Prost asleep, and he certainly woke me up. I think he probably did catch Prost asleep, but he was just a little bit too ambitious to make the space.
Keke Rosberg in effect saying, watch it, mon ami, because if you put one wheel wrong, zap, I'm going to be through. And Keke Rosberg is a very, very determined, hard-charging driver. And of great significance is the fact that Keke Rosberg is acknowledged to be very hard on the driving rear tyre. Now, they both drive, I know, and here he is having a close-up right on Alain Prost. But whichever rear tyre it is that is doing the most work on any circuit is the one that tends to suffer with Rosberg. He is very, very hard on motor cars. For instance, when the car came back from the Brazilian Grand Prix, in which Rosberg finished in 2nd place, although he was subsequently disqualified, although he had run the whole race distance seemingly all right, the monocoque was a complete write-off and had to be replaced because Rosberg had curved it and distorted it so much that it was a throwaway job. So he's a very hard man. Will the car last? Will the tyres last? Right, we are now on lap 16 as Rosberg tries, and Prost refuses.
He's got his sights fixed on that little point, and he was closer that time than the time before, but of course now he's signalled his intentions. The problem with missing a manoeuvre like that is your intentions are then signalled, and the guy in front of you knows that you're going to have a crack the next lap or whenever you're in position. But as Murray said, Rosberg is hard in every respect. He's a very hard trier. He's forceful, and he's growing in confidence all the time. And he is through. Oh, and they're going to touch. And he's made it. And I don't know whether he's crippled Prost or whether Prost just said, I've had enough of this, or maybe knocked out of gear. But terrific, forceful stuff from Keke Rosberg.
And look at the way he's sprinting away. I think, actually, Alain Prost did the gentlemanly thing. It may seem a little strange that a racing driver should do that in the position he was in, but I actually think that Prost saw that if he didn't back off, Keke Rosberg was going to go straight into the barrier. Let's have a look. Here it is again. Alain Prost wide into the corner. Keke Rosberg starts to close, coming out of the corner, and I think Prost missed a gear. Prost must have missed a gear.
Yes, it certainly looked like he hadn't got an acceleration, and then, and from now onwards, there you see Rosberg sliding about nearly into the wall. He was off on the slippery marbles where all the debris comes offline. You see Prost is still not accelerating there, and I think he was fumbling around with gears or something like that, but he's got going again. But it'll be interesting to see if he can do anything to stay with Rosberg now. The gap is already established because of Prost sorting himself out, so we'll see what happens.
Well, get the stopwatches out in Australia, folks, because now the race is well and truly on, and I can tell you from our computer information that if Keke Rosberg is more than 3.2 seconds in front of Alain Prost, he is in the lead overall, and the gap now is 2.3 seconds. If Rosberg can increase his lead by just one more second, he will be in the lead overall.
I think Prost may be in trouble. He seemed to go very slowly around that corner as he came into shot just now, and he may be having some transmission trouble or something. So the gap, well, it could be that on driving, but it's biggish. The gap is 3 seconds. It's over 3 seconds already. So Rosberg is very, very close to the lead indeed already.
3.16 seconds when I took it on my watch there. Now let's see what it is here. The answer is 3.37 seconds. Keke Rosberg leads the Detroit Grand Prix of 1982 overall as he goes over the freeway with the normal transport going along it. Keke Rosberg has thrust and forced his way determinedly through into the lead as he goes into the Atwater Tunnel for the 18th time, and the positions now are, and I'm giving you the second part of the race, not overall. Keke Rosberg leads, and this is the first full lap which Keke Rosberg has been in the lead as he goes past Salazar's broken motor car, with Alain Prost now in second position, and still the battle rages for third between Pironi, Giacomelli, and behind Giacomelli, Cheetham.
Keke Rosberg urgently needs just to calm down right now and take that little bit of adrenaline out of his driving. No doubt it was all very exciting that instant. He's got into the lead, but he's streaking away, and it would be just cataclysmic to make a mistake now. I don't think he will, but he's really driving on the limit, and that isn't absolutely necessary right now. I know it's nice to build a lead in a couple of laps and then relax, but he can afford to drive defensively right now.
And he leads overall by 0.7 seconds. He leads this part by 3.9 seconds. Niki Lauda is still in sixth position, and Prost really does seem to be slowing down, almost stationary there.
That was the same spot that he came round very slowly on the last lap, Murray. Now, I don't know whether that's some sort of a fuel pickup problem, but it seems awfully full of petrol for that. Usually when you get a point on the circuit, it's always the same that the car slows down. It usually means there's something like that, but yes, he certainly stretched it out quite a lot, and so for some reason Prost is slowing right down there. Whether he's having, I surmised last time that it might be gearbox trouble, he might be having trouble getting gears. It's a very likely fault to have on this circuit because it's going to give those gearboxes an awful bashing, but Prost has dropped right back now with that evident problem.
And look how closely now Pironi, Giacomelli, Cheeva and Lauda, third, fourth, fifth and sixth, are behind the new second place man, Alain Prost. Prost, there is no doubt about it, has got some problem in the cockpit. Whether it might even be him, of course. Let us not forget that Alain Prost hurt his foot at Monaco, and this race is going to be extremely grueling for him. He's broken a big toe. He has been walking about in considerable pain. Niki Lauda now right up with Cheeva in fifth position. Cheeva fifth and Lauda sixth. There are Pironi, Giacomelli, Cheeva, Lauda. This Detroit Grand Prix may have been at time getting away, but it's great stuff now.
Yes, certainly, because Lauda looks as if he's had enough of sitting at the back of that group and is definitely lining up to have a look-see for a way past. So we've really got it going. I should be interested to see what happens. Oops, and and Giacomelli just recovers that. He very, very nearly spun it. He did well to recover. Lauda trying to have a go through, but Chiva is the only one to benefit from that mistake. He nips up. We'll now see if Chiva can do anything about the Ferrari in front. Meanwhile, of course, they're catching up on Prost, and what might happen if Prost reduces himself to a crawl around these blind corners, and things as Lauda having a go through, and Lauda nips through past Giacomelli, so Giacomelli's having a lap that he would prefer to forget.
And smoke pouring off Lauda's tyres. And a very quick word just to talk about this tyre position. In the lead now is the Goodyear shod car of Keke Rosberg, and of course it is terribly important to Goodyear that one of their runners wins here at Detroit of all places. Prost there on Michelin, then Michelin with Pironi, Michelin with Chiva, Niki Lauda is also on Michelin, and so is Giacomelli. So in the first 6 cars there is just one Goodyear shod runner, but it's the most important from their point of view because it is the leader. And now John Watson is moving up from the field. You just see a flash of him in the background. John Watson is in 7th place, having come up from 13th. So he is having an epic drive of which we have seen nothing. Now look at Prost. Now there is Pironi. We're going to have a tremendous 4 or 5 car battle for 2nd position soon.
Well, the McLarens have found certainly a new life. They look very much revitalised, and it wouldn't surprise me if Lauda put up the fastest lap before he got stuck in the traffic and couldn't do any fast lappery. Watson's obviously going very fast, and I think we could have had a potential McLaren win yet again in this race if it hadn't been for this big traffic jam and a couple of turbos, which Lauda has got to deal with, and Watson, if he's going to do anything later in the race, will also have to deal with, because meanwhile it's letting Rosberg build his lead, but his lead is not too big to crack, depending on, or certainly not from this position, just depending on how long it's going to take Lauda and/or Watson and/or Chiva, for that matter, to dispatch with these turbocharged cars.
Well, there's confirmation of the fact that Prost is in trouble, because look, now Pironi is right with him, so is Chiva in his new 4th position, so is Lauda in his new 5th position, and Giacomelli seems to have lost a bit of heart and is dropping back in 6th position. John Watson coming up in 7th place. Behind John Watson in 8th position it is Daly. Then in 9th position it is Jacques Lafitte. In 10th place it is René Arnoux, who slipped down another place. In 11th position is Nigel Mansell. And look at this. Arnoux, Prost, Pironi, Chiva, Lauda, Giacomelli, and then John Watson. The race has been running 39 minutes. And we expect it to run 78 minutes, so it's just about at half distance if we're right. And if you are thinking, what do you mean, if we're right, you should know. The answer is that there's a great deal of confusion at Detroit today, but we seem to be on top of it now with Keke Rosberg leading, and there were sparks coming up from one of the cars as it went through the tunnel there. Keke Rosberg leading, Alain Prost 2nd, there he is. Pironi 3rd, there he is and challenging. Chiva 4th, there he is behind Pironi. In 5th position, Niki Lauda. In 6th position, Giacomelli. And just behind Giacomelli and closing fast on him, John Watson. We are very soon going to have both the Marlboro McLarens in the first 6, because John Watson will determinedly find a way somehow to scramble past the Panda, which is what Bruno Giacomelli is called, largely because he has a tendency to look like one. Prost, Pironi, Chiva, Lauda, Giacomelli, Watson. That's how close it is. Now, the overall positions as Pironi tries to take Prost and fails. This is taking both parts into account. Keke Rosberg is leading Prost by 6 seconds. Prost is 18 seconds ahead of Pironi, who has got right behind him Giacomelli, Chiva and Lauda. Watson is 8th. Daly is in 9th position. We'll try not to do that too often to you because we know it's confusing. And Pironi is going through to take the position from Prost, and he does it. And Lafitte and Chiva tries as well. Well, Prost is giving confirmation all the time about the fact that something is wrong. I really do suspect that it is foot trouble rather than car trouble. So now Didier Pironi in the Ferrari is up into second place, and without a doubt, therefore, Keke Rosberg is leading the race overall.
Well, it presents a bit of a problem for Eddie Cheever, because you saw how difficult it was and how long it took Pironi to pass Prost, and of course he has the advantage of having actually probably slightly more power than Prost, whereas the others. But Cheever's having a go here. He's alongside. Yes, he's going through, and Lauda's coming through as well. So very good opportunism by Lauda. He managed to take the space that Cheever already created and stick with it, and left Prost nowhere to go to get into the apex of the corner. They left him well behind.
Giacomelli's going through.
Yeah, Giacomelli having a nibble as well.
One correction I feel I must make at this point is that Murray Walker said that the 6 cars behind that of Keke Rosberg were on Michelin tyres. In fact, the Ferrari is on Goodyear tyres, so now that puts Goodyear in first and second place. And back to Murray Walker and James Hunt of Detroit.
Yes, poor old Prost, he's not really having a very happy season. This injury, I think Murray is likely to be quite right on that. It's quite likely to be the trouble. Has come sort of capped it all, because he was winning at Monte Carlo. He makes one little mistake, and he's finding out the hard way that winning the World Championship is not just being the best car driver combination. It requires luck, which Prost certainly isn't having much of, and it requires a great deal of hard work to try and keep away whatever element of luck you can, because that one little error that he made in Monte Carlo, if that's hurting him here, this looks to me like a race that he should have won. If that's the reason, then you can say that might take him on, and he's not accumulating points in the championship in the way that he'd like to or ought to be doing, be it through his own fault or through luck. But luck plays a big part.
Yes, and he's going to lose his World Championship lead at the end of this race unless something incredibly dramatic happens. But let's take a pause on lap 23 as Niki Lauda tries to get past Cheever, and look at the situation. Keke Rosberg leads this part of the race and overall in the new FW08 Williams. In second place, there he is, number 28, Didier Pironi in the Ferrari. Third is Eddie Cheever in the Talbot. Fourth is Niki Lauda in the McLaren. There it is. In fifth position behind Niki Lauda is we are on lap 24 in part 2, and I was sorry I missed telling you who was following Niki Lauda, and the answer of course is still Bruno Giacomelli, and behind Bruno Giacomelli is John Watson, and there you see Watson is now ahead of Giacomelli. That was the change that you just saw. So all of a sudden this race, which was looking static, has really come alive. Alain Prost has lost the lead and slipped right down out of world points contention, and now Eddie Cheever is trying to get past Pironi and failing. Eddie Cheever is the man of the race in many ways at the moment.
Yes, very nearly a coming together there. Lauda is taking the chance to slow Cheever down a little bit to try and get by him, but the track's just a little bit too windy. There's just not the space.
There, Pironi second, Cheever third, Lauda fourth, Watson fifth, Giacomelli down to sixth position. Behind Giacomelli, who is sixth, Alain Prost is in seventh position, but dropping back all the time. I think we can put the unfortunate Alain Prost out of contention in this race.
Yes, I'm beginning to get the feeling that the kindest thing for the Grand-Prix race on this occasion, the Ferrari has caused us a very good race, but I think now it's time that it should be hauled up to the bet and put down, because it's holding up the progress of any sort of a battle with Rosberg. We've seen these drivers, young drivers, Cheever, Giacomelli, try everything they know to get past the Ferrari, but they can't. Without a mistake, I don't think anybody's going to, although they're really climbing. Lauda maybe having a little look beside Cheever, but just not quite in there. He looked as if he had room then, but must have thought better of it for some reason. He's very experienced now. He's not going to take any risks. He knows that the way to pick up points in these races is to be around at the end. But Watson is having a go at his teammate, Lauda. He was having a little sniff and a nibble.
John Watson has come up from 13th to 5th, and now Giacomelli is trying to take John Watson, and looks as though he's going to succeed in doing it, or is he? Watson's got the inside line. No, you don't, says John Watson. Well, it's worth trying, says Giacomelli. I'll have another go, and smokes his tyres and almost stops. And he does so. He's hit the wheel.
Yes, he ran into Watson's rear wheel, and that was bad driving by Giacomelli. He committed himself to a situation he had no chance in, and I have to say that Watson was very lucky to survive that unscathed, if he indeed does, because sometimes you do a little crack in the suspension, he goes another quarter of a mile. We'll see it again here. Now Giacomelli getting a bit overexcited, as is his wont, takes a real kamikaze run at this. He's now committed, but he's not past Watson. Watson turns into the corner, as he's entitled to do. Giacomelli can't get out of the way. Off comes his front wheel with a little bash, but it caught the side of Watson's rear wheel, so hopefully for him he should be all right. A bit of smoke coming off Watson's car then, but he gets away all right.
Well, Giacomelli was very lucky, and so was whoever might have been behind him, that he didn't take somebody off, because if there'd been somebody as close to Giacomelli as he was to Watson, he would undoubtedly have been taken off. And it's another example, I fear, of Giacomelli's tendency to be slightly too impetuous, although heaven knows you've just got to have a go where you see a chance on a circuit like this. But now it is still Rosberg leading overall. As of the last lap, Prost was still in second position overall, but it's now in this part, Pironi second, Cheever third, Lauda fourth, Watson fifth, and Watson looks in very good shape behind Niki Lauda. And Prost in the pits, Alain Prost, who led and dropped right back out of contention, looks as though he is now effectively out of the race. And once again, we have the story of the Renaults having shown so much promise only to fail in the race. And there is the order, and we're looking at the battle for second position with Didier Pironi in the Ferrari, followed by Eddie Cheever in third place. Niki Lauda is fourth, John Watson right behind them in fifth position. And the gap between Keke Rosberg, the leader, and Pironi in second place is just under 21 seconds. So Keke Rosberg really only has to keep going, although there's a long way in the race still to go in order to win. They go past Salazar's broken motor car with Cheever third, Lauda fourth, Watson fifth.
An amazing turnaround for McLaren's in this race, because they really had a nightmare. It was Watson having a go at Lauda, and he's through. Watson just came out. Lauda obviously let him through there. That was a clear case of that. He probably feels that Watson, well, he can see that Watson's going very well indeed. He probably feels that he's had a long enough shot to doing something about it, so the least he can do is let his teammate have a crack at it. I suspect they may well be running different compounds of tyre. This has happened in the past in Belgium when John Watson won. Lauda was well ahead of him and then slowed down. McLaren's like to take a double punt on the tyres, and as a result of that they're leading the Constructors' Championship. But they had a nightmare practice. They were both in double figures. Watson was 17th on the grid, but look at him now. He's really storming.
And he's really storming and taking Cheever through into third position. From 13th place goes John Watson, and by the way, behind this lot in sixth position is Jacques Lafitte in the second of the two Talbots. So Pironi, and now Watson's going through to second position. Unbelievable, but he's done it.
What an amazing burst of driving. He's done on one lap, overtaken three cars when everybody else has spent the whole race failing to overtake anybody. Absolutely marvellous stuff by Watson, but it does underline the fact, and look at the way he's just streaking away. I think you can say that was fine teamwork and fine driving by Lauda to let Watson through. He realised and worked out that Watson was in fitter condition with the car and ready to have a go. Here we're going to see it again. This is how Watson got past Cheever. He came out of that previous corner well. He had a little bit of extra momentum. He gets inside. Cheever sees there's no room. He squeezes through the tiniest gap. Terrific stuff. And then he just allows his momentum and adrenaline to carry him right past the Ferrari. I think we're going straight on here because he squeezes inside him at the very next corner. Fantastic driving.
Well, it seems John Watson's really got the bit between his teeth, and with a bit of luck we might just see a replay of the Belgium Grand Prix with Watson slowly but surely hauling in Keke Rosberg. In the meantime, Prost has pulled into the pits and he's out of the points altogether. I'll cross you back to Murray Walker and James Hunt.
Watson, number 7 there, is now second overall to Keke Rosberg, and this is taking both parts into account, and is leading the World Championship. Very important indeed. So, on lap 28, And we don't know, frankly, how long the race is going to run. We expect it to run 64 laps altogether, taking into account the first 6 laps. It is Keke Rosberg leading, John Watson in second place, Didier Pironi in the Ferrari there, the leader of these cars, in 3rd position, Eddie Cheever in 4th place, Niki Lauda in 8th position, in 5th position, and in 6th position, Jacques Lafitte is coming up through the field. So the work that the Talbot, there's Lafitte in the background, the work that the Talbot people have done on the cars since Monaco, when they were an abysmal failure, has been enormously successful, with Cheever driving the race of his life in 3rd position and holding Pironi and keeping ahead of Niki Lauda, is driving superbly, and Jacques Lafitte going very, very well in the second of the new Talbots. Now, Lafitte, Cheever challenging in the tunnel, is he? We've never seen anybody try and pass in the tunnel. It's very wide, notably wider than the one at Monaco. Pironi, 3rd. John Watson, it's quite incredible, this. I said earlier on that John Watson was in 13th place, and he was. He has climbed up 11 places through the field on this tortuous, extremely twisty and very bumpy in parts, because that's one of the driver's complaints here at Detroit, and that's why John Watson, the fastest lap, 1 minute 51 seconds, and that is a speed of 80.6 miles an hour. Much slower than we expected it to be, because the Renault computer before this race, having looked at the course, said that the lap speed would be about 85 miles an hour. Well, we're having to take a check on whether Watson is in fact second overall, because he was 13 seconds behind Prost on the first leg. But we'll see, we'll see. Meantime, Pironi, Cheever, Lauda, Giacomelli out of the race, of course, De Cesaris out of the race, Salazar out of the race, and although... And there's Lauda taking Cheever. Lauda goes through, moves up a place. Eddie Cheever lost his previous place on that corner. So now Niki Lauda is starting his charge, and there is definite indication there that the McLaren car is absolutely right for this circuit. Watson has charged through from 13th to 2nd. Niki Lauda, a very, very seasoned campaigner, is now up into 4th position.
Yes, I think Lauda's making a big push now, Murray. He seems to have suddenly taken a little bit more of an edge to his driving, just looks a little bit keener, a little bit jumpier in the cockpit, and that's probably the stimulus of seeing his teammate John Watson just rocket through past that group once he got his momentum going, and then disappear so fast that he went straight out of our camera shot. We haven't seen him since. We don't know how far ahead he is at the moment and how fast he's gone away from them.
Well, I guess the producer will see Keke Rosberg on one of his monitors, and this is the battle in the race, and we reckon with 29 laps completed, plus 6, that makes 35. There's about another 29 laps to go, about as many laps to go as have gone already, with Giacomelli's car parked there, with Keke Rosberg leading by at least 20 seconds, with John Watson in 2nd position. This is the battle for 3rd, 4th and 5th. Didier Pironi in the V6 turbocharged Ferrari 3rd.
Find a way past this mobile chicane, because the Ferrari has been proving itself to be faster on the straight stretches, although he has certainly been slow around the braking areas. And there you can see how Niki Lauda really closes up on tucking himself in behind the rear wing of Didi.
Keeps his line and moves up a place. And Mike, there is Lauda past Pironi, and now Cheever's having a go at Pironi. This really is a race of changes all the way round, but in the front still is Keke Rosberg, but John Watson, you can't see it, we can. John Watson is closing up on Keke Rosberg, having flown through the field from that lowly position, starting on the grid in 17th place and nearly losing it. Nicky Lauda holds it and he goes into the Atwater tunnel.
Remembering, of course, that for Watson, he hasn't just got to catch Rosberg and then pass him. He then has to build a very considerable lead on Rosberg, because he had a large deficit from the first heat of something like 15 seconds or something like that. So he needs to build a big lead to get away.
Yes, Rosberg has got to be some 13.2 seconds, we calculate, behind Watson, if Watson were to be in the lead overall. But Watson's still got to catch him, never mind get past him, never mind build up a 13-second cushion ahead of him. And Watson is the fastest man on the circuit, look, 1 minute 51.25, a speed of just under 81 miles an hour, which when you see this Detroit circuit as they go past Giacomelli's broken car seems almost unbelievable. It is so twisty. Lauda, Pironi, Cheever, third, fourth and fifth, and Lafitte in sixth place.
And there goes Cheever squeezing through. Excellent maneuver. He did it where Rosberg was trying to do it to Prost, but they're not getting away from Pironi with anything like the alacrity that John Watson showed. And there's Watson in the lead of the race. We didn't see him pass it, but that's Rosberg behind him. So Watson has just taken the lead on the road, but as far as the overall race is concerned, he's still got something like 13 seconds to go to pull away. But my God, is he streaking away? And it must be that he's running different tyres to Lauda, and therefore probably different to a lot of other. Here we see it again. He's just pulling out of the slipstream into the out-braking position, taking the inside line for the corner, and there goes Keke Rosberg's immediate lead, but not his overall lead.
37 accumulated laps, including the 6 of the first part completed.
If Watson can go on and win this race, he's certainly going to consolidate his World Championship lead. I'll return you back to Murray Walker and James Hunt.
Two-part race. Rosberg is plus 15 seconds on him, or thereabouts, from the first half of the race. So he's got, you see there in the caption, Rosberg is still ahead. In fact, Pironi is still in second place, according to that.
These captions really do more harm than good. They're very misleading because the race is changing so much. But there is confirmation of the fact that John Watson, whilst we were concentrating on the battle between Pironi and Cheever and Lauda, has been closing up all the time on Keke Rosberg, and now leads on lap 31 in this second part, lap 37 overall. And as James says, he's just got to pull away, and there's little doubt that he's doing that. Totally rejuvenated John Watson in the last couple of years. He won the Gran-Pri this year, he won the Belgian Gran-Pri this year, and it looks as though he's now on his way.
It looks very much to me as if Rosberg's tyres are going off. It would appear that Watson very wisely before the race has chosen to start with a harder compound tyre, and of course this is allowing him now to ask more of the car and the tyre later on in the race, and they're standing up to it very well. Rosberg, on the other hand, along with Lauda, looks like they may have started with a slightly softer compound and are paying the penalty now. I think that Watson has got the capability of consolidating his lead to make up the deficit that he had in the first heat. And, of course, if he can do this, he'll win the race overall. And, as I said before, well and truly consolidate his position in the World Championship. I return you now to Murray Walker and James Hunt at Detroit.
Well, one of the things that Watson has got, of course, is experience. More of it than anybody in this race, even including Nicky Lauda, because this is his 128th Grand Prix, of which he has won 3. 2 pole positions, 4 second places, 6 thirds, and John Watson's driven for the Surtees team, for Brabham, for Penske and for McLaren. And as I say, with this new MP4 John Barnard designed chassis and the leadership of Ron Dennis, the Marlboro team and the McLaren team have been absolutely rejuvenated. It's come together as a perfect team.
Well, that wide aerial shot that we just had showing the distance on the road between Watson and Rosberg is probably the last shot that we'll get. Oh, we might get a couple more when we can still see Rosberg in the background if we're looking at Watson, but it looks to me now that it's plain sailing for John Watson. All he has to do is keep his keep himself together, keep his car together, hope that the car, in all other respects, keeps itself together. And it looks like he's heading for his second Grand Prix win of the season and the lead, and quite comfortable lead of the World Championship.
Yes, well, while you've been talking, James, I've been doing some calculations, and John Watson has got to keep at it, because actually, remembering the fact that he had a very bad first part, he has actually got to get 23 seconds ahead of Rosberg to win the race overall. Now, he's not anything like 23 seconds ahead of him at the moment, but as I said, there were then 50 minutes more to go. There's, say, 45 minutes more to go now, which means to say that John Watson has actually got plenty of time to ease out and extend his lead over Keke Rosberg. But by the same token, he's got plenty of time to make mistakes and for something to go wrong with the car.
Just in my head, that's about getting on for 25 laps to go, and he's already must have got 7 or 8 seconds on it, so he's looking at well within a second a lap, something like 2/3 of a second a lap, and looking at it now just with the naked eye, it seems to me that he's pulling away at much more than a second a lap, so he's well on schedule. It's just a question if he can keep it going. I think Rosberg may be struggling with his tyres a little bit, have slowed down, struggling for grip, and it's of some interest to me. We can't see from our commentary position enough of any of the circuit, and therefore we can't see if Rosberg is actually falling back towards Lauda.
Well, overall, the computer says that Rosberg is leading, Lauda is second. This is not just this part of the race, it's both parts of the race. Rosberg leads, Lauda second, and Watson, who is leading this part, is third overall, now 18 seconds behind Rosberg. So as James says, he is pulling away from Rosberg in this part and closing up on Rosberg on aggregate, with Cheever in 4th place overall, Pironi in 5th place overall, and Lafitte in 6th place overall.
Yes, that last computer result was 2 or 3 laps old. I suspect it's already changed quite dramatically, because I would think Watson must now be in 2nd place and must also have reduced that gap a bit further to Rosberg. But I'd quite like to see, as calculations are pretty difficult for us, as we can't sit up here and click watches as the cars go past the start-finish line to get gaps. It's proving a bit of a handicap for us, but let's hope we get the computer to do all that work for us and give us an update in a minute.
Well, John's still driving very hard indeed. You can see by the positioning of the car on the corners that he's really giving it plenty of welly, so he's getting signals from his pit, which is indicating to him his overall position, no doubt. And that's Lauda. That's Niki Lauda. Niki Lauda stopped. Well, this race is having drama after drama, a late start, but now the double world champion of 1975 and 1977 is out of the Detroit Grand Prix, which means to say that John Watson leads this part of the race. In 2nd position is Keke Rosberg. In 3rd position was Niki Lauda, but now up into 3rd place comes Eddie Cheever. Up into 4th place comes Didier Pironi. In 5th position it is Jacques Lafitte, and in 6th position it is Derek Daly, followed in 7th place by Nigel Mansell. In 8th position is Jochen Maas. In 9th position is René Arnoux. In 10th position is Mark Surer. In 11th position is Michele Alboreto. And in 12th place is Brian Hinton, followed by the last runner, and there goes Pironi off. Well, tyres are starting to go, I suspect.
Yes, well, possibly human exhaustion as well. A combination of the two. And there is Rosberg with Cheever right behind him. Pironi went wide at the corner there, made a big mistake, lost a bit of time, so he's lost touch. But Cheever is now climbing all over the back of Rosberg's car and looks favourite to get past him as well. But he, again, will have to make up a fair few seconds on top of getting past Rosberg in order to deprive him of 2nd place.
And if tyres are the key, as they may well be, it looks as though the Michelin combination is the right one to have, and Cheever goes through into 2nd position as Niki Lauda walks back, and Rosberg dropping right back. He's obviously in trouble.
Yes, Rosberg must have some trouble. It looks mechanical rather than tyres, because he's going too slowly down the straight. So Rosberg obviously in bother. He will now be nursing his car to the finish, but can't be considered in serious contention. And that now looks as if the race is well tied up to John Watson, because his opposition, as well as not being able to have any answer to his turn of speed, have also fallen by the wayside, and it looks very much as if the race is handed up as much on a plate as they ever are, because whatever happens, you still have to get the car to the line and keep the thing going and running. And Watson's still got a fair old distance of that to do. He's got possibly 35 minutes still to go, and that's a long time when you're out there on your own in front.
Yes, and Charger Cheever is on his way in second place. There's the third place man, Rosberg, but I guess he's going to have trouble in maintaining that position, because he has had to allow Watson to close right up on him. Then he had to allow Cheever to pass him, and Keke Rosberg, being the determined young man that he is, would not have done that if he had not had to do it. So Rosberg down to third place as we look at the second place man, Eddie Cheever, and we wait to see now who is coming through in fourth position, but we don't get the chance. Now, to win overall, John Watson has got to stay 12.5 seconds at least in front of Eddie Cheever. This race is a constantly moving quicksand of calculations to take into account who did what in the first part of the race, the first 6-lap part, which could well prove to be crucial, which will prove to be crucial. And that caption, you see, is already out of date, long out of date, because Watson leads and Rosberg is down to third, and that must be Arnoux.
Yes, that's Arnoux in the pits. He's having a tyre change amongst other things. Seems to be plenty of work going on all around him. Significantly on that last caption, courtesy of the computer, though, we did see that Watson was already in front of Eddie Cheever by some 4 seconds. And if that is correct, because in a melee of calculations such as this, you trust nobody, not even the computer, because that's only as good as what it's fed in terms of information. So we'll have to work it all out at the end. But it looks, according to that, if Watson is now in a comfortable lead with Rosberg obviously going backwards and out of the way.
As John Watson closes up on Mark Sure's arrows, the Swiss driver, who is still recovering from the 2 broken ankles that he had in South Africa at the beginning of the year. There is the Swiss driver, Sure, in the arrows. Remember, Mauro Baldi went out in the first part, and Sure is in 9th position in this part of the race. So Watson is soon going to have lapped everybody up to 8th place, because Mark Sure is a polite young man and is not given to getting in people's way if he can get out of it. And I have little doubt that he will let John Watson through, and he does so. That's the first time that we've seen somebody pass someone else in the tunnel. And John Watson has now lapped everybody up to 8th position, and overall the positions are still, or were on the last lap, that Rosberg was leading by 4 seconds from Watson, with Cheever third and Lafitte fourth. But there is no doubt in my mind that now Watson is leading overall, and on lap 37 in this second part, it is first John Watson, second Eddie Cheever, third Keke Rosberg, fourth Jacques Lafitte, fifth Didier Pironi, and the really significant thing, which is confirmed for once by the caption, is that the 2 Talbots are not only in the first 6 places, but in the first 4 places, with Cheever third and Lafitte fourth.
Watson, you'll see now, is also pulling away from Cheever pretty quickly. So Watson is really home and dry, bar any incident. Great shame. This race was very, very exciting for a while, but it all split up all of a sudden. And as everything emerged, Watson now has the race truly sewn up, unless, of course, something goes wrong for him.
Yes, he is leading by 3 seconds overall, taking both parts of the race into account. John Watson. Converted Coast Guard cottage, been driving for 18 years to achieve those 3 Formula One Grand Prix victories, and last year he really came good again with the new MP4 McLaren. And up he comes again, going straight through the field. And the car that he's taking there is Jacques Lafitte. Chico Serra, my apologies, That's Chico Serra's car, the Brazilian in the Fittipaldi car, who was lucky to get a run in this race because he didn't get going in the first part properly. And that break after the first 6 laps when the race was stopped has enabled Chico Serra to get back into the contention again.
It's the most extraordinary thing, having watched this race and, well, all season basically, that Watson has struggled so badly in qualifying. The Belgian Grand Prix, he won in a very similar situation of whether, certainly there, it was very much a victory for tyres. He chose a harder compound than either Lauda, his teammate, or most of the other runners. And he struggled all through the first half of the race, just maintaining a fairly lowly grid position. And as the tyre pattern and situation, the state of the track changed, Watson suddenly came alive. And from half distance onwards, he was storming through the field, taking a long time to overtake. And you remember he just managed to force a mistake out of Rosberg, who was struggling on worn-out tyres and dodgy rear brakes. Right at the end of the race, he forced him into a little error under pressure and was able to nip through and win. It was a very late judgment, but Watson will be examining. If he's going to win the World Championship, he's going to have to examine ways to get that McLaren round faster in qualifying. It's not a problem peculiar to him because he's never been a lot slower than Nicky Lauda in qualifying. Lauda has, as it would be expected, been a little bit quicker generally, but for instance here and also at Monte Carlo, neither driver was. And there is one of the Lotuses.
Nigel Mansell. Nigel Mansell getting out of his obviously broken Lotus, and now on lap 40 of this second part, lap 46 overall, with John Watson in the lead in the second part. He is also in the lead overall. Eddie Cheever, who is in second place in this part, is also second overall. Down to third position overall has gone Rosberg, and he must slip lower still. And Jacques Lafitte is in fourth place overall, as he is in fourth place in the second part. And Didier Pironi is in a similar situation. Fifth overall and fifth in this second part. So the much longer distance that they have run in this second part than they did in the first part. As we look at Jochen Maas and Chico Serra. Jochen Maas, the German in the march. Chico Serra. There's Eddie Cheever in second place. The longer distance that they've run in this second part is now more than counterbalancing the first part. And there is 11.720 seconds between John Watson and Eddie Cheever in this second part. And this second part, now they are on lap 40, coming up to the end of it, which means 46 laps overall, taking the first part into account, in what we expect to be a 64-lap race. So there's, what, 18 laps to go, if my mental arithmetic is right. John Watson leading. Thousands of Americans who have turned out in Motown, Motor City, Detroit, had their patience sorely tested with all the aggro that happened in practice, and there are Maas and Chico Serra. They had their patience even further tested, Mark Surer going through with the delayed start. But what they came to see has been more than fulfilled. There are now 33 minutes to go. 33 minutes to go in this race, and John Watson taking that corner very wide indeed, but cutting in safely, has therefore got to keep up the pace, because he's not all that much ahead of Eddie Cheever on aggregate. There is Cheever. Was in sixth place in the first part, and John Watson was well behind him. Those are the positions after 46 laps, and as you see, John Watson's only leading Cheever by 3 seconds, because 46 laps is the full part.
No, that's the overall position. He's in fact 14 seconds in front, because he's pulled away so fast. It's confused everybody.
Well, it certainly had me going there. John Watson. Now let's look down the lap chart and give you the positions on lap 40 40 in this second part, with John Watson leading in the McLaren Ford V8 powered, Eddie Cheever second in the Talbot Matra V12 powered. In third position, it's still Rosberg who is holding on, although we haven't seen much of him. In fourth position, it is Jacques Lafitte. Rosberg, of course, in the Williams. Jacques Lafitte in the second of the two Talbots, which are therefore second and fourth. In fifth position, in the Ferrari, is Didier Pironi. In sixth place, in the second of the two Williams cars, it is Derek Daly. And in seventh position, it is Jochen Maas. So both the Williams are in the first, in the top 6 places. Well, you can tell a lot better than I can, James, looking at John Watson, how hard he is driving. How hard would you say he is driving?
Well, we haven't been following him around that closely recently, but I would say he's driving steadily. He's still giving the pressure on that, and that is Jacques Lafitte with a bent nose cone. We don't know how it's achieved, but the front wings do very little on the cars these days, so that may not be hurting his aerodynamics too much. He seems to be scrapping it in with the others there, so he's trying to fight his way past Keke Rosberg, and has got the Ferrari there. In fact, there's quite a little battle going on there. But Watson has now eased up a little bit. He seems to be going a little bit harder right now than he needs to be, but I think he's so comfortable and the car is running so well that he's just sort of keeping going. He's within himself, but he hasn't specifically slowed up, and that's probably quite a wise thing to do, because out there in a situation like that, drivers know only too well, or experienced ones do, what sort of confusion can go on in the pits at times like that. And Lafitte has got pie, and he's passed Rosberg, so now he's got to build that lead on Rosberg to catch what the deficit that he had in the first race in order to take it into third place.
I suspect that Jacques Lafitte stuffed the nose of his Talbot into the gearbox of Keke Rosberg's Williams, trying to get past him. Anyway, he's succeeded now. So we have Talbot's second and third, which is something we certainly didn't think would have happened for some time when we watched the Monaco Grand Prix, when they were in such disastrous disarray. And it says a heck of a lot for Jean-Pierre Jacques. And Pironi goes past. Rosberg is dropping back now. Pironi then through up into fourth position, having been second at one part of the race. So with Rosberg now in fifth position, and in sixth position behind him, Derek Daly. Take no notice of the captain. John Watson is certainly leading. Cheever is certainly second. Jacques Lafitte is now third. Up into fourth position has come Pironi, as we look at Jacques Lafitte in his very bent Talbot. There's Pironi behind him in fourth position. Then Keke Rosberg in fifth place, grimly holding on because he's still in the running for 2 World Championship points. And Derek Daly coming up in the second of the two Williams cars to hopefully get 1 World Championship point. And place 1, that's one of the McLaren, place 1 plus 18 points. That is the signal to John Watson with, we reckon, some 25 laps to go. Will be the third line of the equation.
And at this point in time, we have to leave the Detroit Grand Prix, but there is the placings as they are. Watson, Cheever, Lafitte, Pironi and Rosberg. We will be returning soon, immediately after Steve Liebman with the National News Today and the latest news. So right after that, we'll be back with the Detroit Grand Prix with John Watson leading at the present time from Cheever and Lafitte.
As you now get a good look at downtown Detroit, there he is, the 36-year-old driver from Northern Ireland, driving for Team McLaren, the Ford-powered McLaren car. He has had 1 win earlier this season in the Grand Prix of Belgium and a second in Brazil. And if he wins this race, he will easily take the lead in the overall season-long battle for the championship. He will have 26 points. In second place will be Pironi. If he stays where he is, 19. They tell him he is 28 seconds ahead of Eddie Cheever. That's overall. He's actually more than that on the race course. But the important thing is, how many seconds overall? Well, he has a 28-second lead. So, Jackie Stewart's been watching all this. What's your comment?
Well, he's also got 18 minutes left in the race. Because this is going to be called a 2-hour race, he's got 18 minutes left. So therefore, the pit want him to know that. If he has to conserve the car, if he has to take it a little bit easy, he knows that there's only 18 minutes left. Unquestionably, John Watson will be getting tired now. Physically, it's an extraordinarily tiring experience to drive a car. Now, here's Eddie Cheever, the young American, driving very forcibly indeed. A remarkable performance in front of his own home crowd in second position.
That's right, and the best he has ever finished in his Grand Prix career is third. That came in the Grand Prix of Belgium not long ago in this year of 1982. Chris Kanamaki has Nicky Lauda in the pits. Chris?
Nicky, you look like a race fan at this point of the day. Like you're rooting for John. He's doing a beautiful job.
I tried to outbrake Rosberg down there, and he cut the corner. You know, he cut the line. It was really my fault because I shouldn't have tried it down there. So I jumped over him, took airborne.
Too bad. You're rooting for John Watson, I'm sure, huh?
I hope he wins.
Better luck next time, Nicky.
Thank you.
Okay, Nicky Lauda. Pretty noisy down there.
Former world champion Nicky Lauda. Yes, Jackie?
A very honest declaration from a man of enormous experience. He therefore said that Keke Rosberg, he felt, made a slight mistake, but it was his fault that he had allowed himself to be put into a set of circumstances where he could be endangered by Rosberg putting him out of the race. That's a very mature way to look at it. It's not a question of saying somebody else was at fault. He knew himself he shouldn't have been there at that moment. Nicky Lauda, a wise man.
The great champion normally react that way, whether it's Bill Shoemaker in horse racing, Nicky Lauda in motor racing, Jack Nicholson golf, whoever it might be. There is the leader, John Watson. Ironic and interesting that it was just yesterday he was involved in an incident during practice in the rain here. It would have been possible he might not even have been able to participate, but there he is leading, going through the tunnel as we come to you live. But this was yesterday. John Watson in the red and white car. Watch it, car number 7, coming up behind our new.
And watch what happens here. He just gets shot off the front end there, and the front wheel you can see is out of line, the front wing also out of line. He felt that he was sure going inside the car there, probably been driven by Jacques Lafitte, was it? And then he went up inside trying to get under braking. He thought he had made it, and look what happens. He was a little tentative there at that point, and right there at that moment, he of course strikes the barrier on the left-hand side of the racetrack and also damages himself. And John
Wait
Watson,
a minute, this is live. That was on... Oh, no. All right, hold it. Faked ourselves out on this one. Suddenly we cut to this tight shot. That is still from yesterday's incident.
well, of course, with only a day to go, John Watson was more than just a little bit annoyed. We're now looking at him right now live here in Detroit, and John Watson is very much still in the motor race, still powering his 4-powered McLaren around this 2.5-mile racetrack. Remember, this is a normally aspirated engine, 3-liter capacity, 3,000 cc's, as he drives around here with about 480 brake horsepower coming to these rear wheels.
John Watson with a 27-second overall lead over Eddie Cheever. Didier Pironnet is third. Keke Rosberg is still fourth. Jacques Lafitte is fifth. We'll be back.
Sure.
Nearing the closing laps of the Detroit Grand Prix. Lap 54 completed of a schedule 75, but it will not be ended according to the laps. The rule is the lap numbers or 2 hours in Grand Prix racing, whichever shall come first, and it's going to be the 2 hours. So we have about 12 minutes of racing left here as John Watson continues to lead, now by 26 seconds over Eddie Cheever. May be slowing it down just a little bit. Didier Pironnet is third, and there he shows by 27 seconds. Yep. And here is Eddie Cheever in second place, apparently headed for the finest finish of his career and in his own country, the United States. He's spent very little time here, lived most of his life in Europe, still an American citizen. He's 25 years old, makes his home in Monte Carlo, spends a lot of time in Italy, but drives for the French team of Talbot, that's the name of the car, and Ligier, that's Guy Ligier, a former Grand Prix and endurance driver who runs the team. Remember when Guy Ligier first brought his own car to Le Mans back in the early 60s when we first started going there. But Eddie Cheever is one of the big stories. You'll be reading about him in the papers and the magazines next week. Jackie talked to him.
Living in being an American, how close is America to you in respect to representing your country or flying your flag in the internationalism that Grand Prix racing is surrounded by?
Very much so. I'm proud to be an American, and I would never change my nationality in any way, for any reason. But I cannot see myself living in America for a long time. I think after, when I stop racing, I do something else, I would like to move to America. But for the moment, I am an American living abroad, but I'm a proud American living abroad.
A very well put statement by Eddie Cheever in second place in this Detroit Grand Prix. So one day he'll probably return home. And of course, the main reason, as I think he indicated earlier in an interview, that he's saying in Europe is to be a Formula One racer, and that's where it is for the most part. Cheever flashing through the picture. Watson first then, Cheever second, Pironi third, Rosberg fourth, Jacques Lafitte fifth in the overall standings. We're going to be coming back for the finish of this race, of course. Right now we're going to be returning very briefly to our New York studio. ABC colleague Jack Whitaker has been holding forth there, as you know, all afternoon in the post operation, as we call it. So let's go to Jack again right now. Okay, Jack.
And now we're back live with the Detroit Grand Prix, where John Watson is still leading, the 36-year-old driver, from Eddie Cheever, then Jacques Lafitte, Didier Pironi, and Keke Rosberg having all sorts of problems. Lap 56, there's around about 20 laps still to go, and Watson opening up a very handsome lead at this particular time. Back now to commentators, James Hunt, Murray Walker.
And there he has remained. So 3 different leaders. I'm not going to say anything else about leaders because it is tempting fate, except to say that John Watson is certainly looking secure at the moment.
Just stroking it round very neatly now. He's not using all the road. He's yeah, he still seems to be going away from Eddie Cheever. So Watson is operating in the happy position of having got his car absolutely right, made a pretty good tire choice, obviously, and has a considerable advantage over his rivals. Very pleasant position to be in. However, he had to work extremely hard for it with all that overtaking, because he qualified himself into a terrible situation, which, of course, is just as well for us viewers at home, because we can enjoy the race a lot more. It would have been no fun at all if Watson started off the pole and just disappeared into the dim and distant on his own.
Unseen by worldwide of sport viewers, wide world of sport viewers in Australia, but seen by us, Didier Pironi has got ahead of Jacques Lafitte and is back in 3rd position. So I would imagine that crumpled nose cone of Lafitte's Talbot, although it would have less effect on a twisty circuit like this, where downforce matters less than handling, has started to affect him, and Jacques Lafitte is down to 4th position in the second of the Talbots, Pironi in 3rd position in the Ferrari, and Pironi, who won at San Marino, who was 2nd at Monaco, is now up into 3rd position in this Detroit Grand Prix. He's actually in 3rd position overall in the World Championship too, only 1 point behind John Watson when this race began. And now John Watson, if he keeps going, will be leading the World Championship after 7 rounds for the first time in his long career. And Cheever, who is the only American in this American race, is definitely about to get his best result. He's now some 40 seconds behind John Watson, and on lap 48 in the second part, lap 56 overall in the second part, John Watson leads Cheever. Pironi is 3rd, Lafitte is 4th, Daly has moved up into 5th position in the Williams, ahead of his teammate Rosberg, who is in 6th place. So both the Saudi Williams cars are still in the top 6 places, and I don't think that Jochen Maas, who is in 7th place, is in fact going to be able to catch Rosberg, provided the Finn, Keke Rosberg, Finnish driver, can just keep going. That caption has now been outdated by what I have just said to you, and you can see that Derek Daly has gained 13 seconds on his teammate since it was posted. John Watson. Daly's car with the bent suspension on the near side front. Nigel Mansell's car there. Here. And it's just a case of keeping up the rhythm. And driving in any Grand Prix, and particularly one on a circuit like this, is very much a case of building up and then maintaining a rhythm. Place one, plus there's Teddy Mayer on the right, 14 minutes to go, 28 seconds ahead, so Watson is increasing his lead. And the McLaren team is certainly having a marvellous season, because Niki Lauda won at Long Beach, John Watson won the Belgian Grand Prix, and so therefore they're on their way to their third victory in 7 Grand Prix this year.
If they are in fact already leading the Constructors' Championship by dint of the fact that their drivers have spread their results so well, so this is a marvellous performance by McLaren as a whole, and a great tribute to Ron Dennis and his section of the team that came in to form a new company just 18 months ago and build the MP4 car. They've revitalised the fortunes of McLaren, which really was a team in disarray before. It had been going downhill ever since the mid-70s. They swung along on the crest for a while, but the team really fell apart, and it was a new management structure and everything, and it's really worked out. And as I say, all credit to Ron Dennis and his men for putting things together, redoing the engineering side of the company, and the results are now showing.
And not very long to go now. On lap 50 of this second part, on lap 56 overall, in what, I say again, we expect to be a 64-lap race to make up the full 2 hours. 1 hour, 48 minutes and 20 seconds was the time that we expected the race to run before the checkered flag was held out in this second part to make up the full 2 hours, because the first part only ran just over 11 minutes before the coming together of Patrese, Brabham and Guerrero's ensign, having been interfered with, as it were, by Elio De Angelis's Lotus 91, brought the first part of the race to a close on the second lap after 6 full laps had been completed. John Watson leading, number 7. The chassis of this car, made in America, made by the Hercules Corporation, and Jacques Lafitte is dropping down through the field because Derek Daly is now up into 4th position. We've just seen him go by, and on lap 50, just coming to the end of it, there's the leader, John Watson. Eddie Cheever is still 2nd, Pironi is still 3rd, but up to 4th position has gone Derek Daly. In 5th position it is Jacques Lafitte, and in 6th position it is Keke Rosberg. There is the 2nd place man, Eddie Cheever. Water tunnel. Now 2 courses can say that they have a tunnel. It is no longer a unique distinction for the Monaco circuit. And he's being followed by Brian Hinton, is Eddie Cheever. Brian Hinton, who looks as though he's going to go the full race distance and is in 9th place. Superhen, the ex-Formula 2 champion of 1982, European Formula 2 champion in the Tolman. And he didn't get a place in the Tolman team when it went Formula 1. Well, he did. He got it last year, but he only got 1 drive, and that was when he qualified for Italy right at the end of the season at Monza. His contract was not renewed this year. His place was taken in the Tolman team by Teo Fabi, and now he's in the Tyrrell team and getting a Grand Prix finish. And that's Eddie Cheever pulling away. So Talbot have got a lot to encourage them. They've kept at it. Jean-Pierre Jarier, the ex-Renault driver who won 2 Grand Prix in his career. And he won the French Grand Prix at Dijon, and he won the Austrian Grand Prix at Zeltweg. Then crashed very badly in the Canadian Grand Prix the year before last, and when he came back, he tried to drive the Talbot, but had to opt out of driving, became team manager, and since he's very much a technician, has applied all his expertise to making the Talbots go, although he's hoping to drive again. He has declared recently that at the end of the season he's going to test the Talbot, and if he thinks he's capable of driving it, he will re-enter the Grand Prix scene as a driver. That is, if his team owner Guy Ligier lets him, because Charrier is undoubtedly valuable as a developer. That's John Watson. He is now on lap 57 overall, lap 51 in this second part. Just a very, very few laps to go now, about 7 laps.
Job on him, and had he ever got past me, he was going to go a lot quicker. I was in a bit of trouble with my car on that day. A lot of understeer. The front wheels weren't gripping properly, but I managed to use my experience and cunning at blocking by keeping the inside line into the corners and fending him off. And then, luckily for me, he broke down 2/3 of the way through the race through no fault of his own. His gearbox went, and I was handed an easy passage to the end.
John Watson then going past Congress on his way to the left-handed turn 8 and the right-handed turn 9. Along Larned Street up to the left-handed turn 10, and he is on lap 59 overall, lap 53 in this second part. The right-handed turn 11 comes next, now past the Pontchartrain Hotel on his right, accelerating up to the left-handed turn 12. Little short straight before another right-angled left-hander, turn 13. Right-handed, right-angle, turn 14. Past the Cobo Arena on his right, into the left-handed 90-degree turn 15, into the Atwater Tunnel with the Civic Centre above him and on his left. Out of the tunnel, past the Ford Auditorium, into the right-angle turn 16. The left-handed turn 17, the Renaissance Centre on his left, into the kink left, right, left. 25 seconds ahead, past the pits, into turns 1 and 2 again. John Watson, with 6 minutes to go as he went past, is leading on lap 54 now, with Eddie Cheever in second place, Didier Pironi in third position, Derek Daly in fourth position, Keke Rosberg in fifth place, Jacques Lafitte in sixth position, and Watson there laps Jacques Lafitte, number 26, who is in sixth position. So John Watson has lapped everybody up to the fifth place man, Keke Rosberg. And Rosberg is still in with a chance for points, because he will get 2 points for fifth position, which will bring him up, would have brought him up with Didier Pironi, but his misfortune is that Pironi is actually a couple of places ahead of him. So there's going to be quite a shuffle in the World Championship situation, with John Watson taking the lead with 26 points. And my brain isn't working fast enough to talk to you and work out the calculations that are necessary to give you the revised World Championship situations, with less than 4 minutes to go in the first ever Detroit Grand Prix on this brand new circuit, on which $4 million American have been spent, plus a lot more, I suspect, on side issues. And John Watson nearly home then for his fourth Grand Prix. Austria in 1976, Britain in 1981, Belgium in 1982, and for the first time he is going to have won, if he can just do those last few minutes and the last couple or so laps, he's going to have won 2 Grand Prix in one season. And overall, this is taking both parts of the race into account as we look at second place man Eddie Cheever. John Watson leads. Eddie Cheever there is in second place. Didier Pironi overall is in third place. Keke Rosberg overall is in fourth place. Derek Daly overall is in fifth place. And Jacques Lafitte, despite his crumpled nose cone, overall is still in sixth position. Cheever second. completes a lap. John Watson well away there. Round turn 6 up to turn 7. Approaching Congress. Past Mansell's car. Oh, he's a phlegmatic chap, John Watson. He's got a wry and dry sense of humour, but assuming that he finishes the race where he is, I wouldn't expect him to be jumping up and down with excitement. He will quietly accept the fact that he has driven an absolutely superb race, and those are the overall positions. And there's the pit signal. You're in first position, plus 25 seconds with 2 laps to go.
Yes, well, that's what the team is speculating, but we have it a bit marginal as to whether it's going to be 1 or 2 more laps, depending on when it finishes. I think it might only be 1, but the team will always take the precaution of giving him the most possible number, because it's the most awful thing that can happen to a driver is you signal him 1 lap to go, he comes around thinking he's won, slows down, the checkered flag doesn't come out, and have in my career actually seen races lost like that. So they'll give him 2 laps to go and then hope that he gets the checkered flag and notices it this time.
Well, John Watson on his way, surely, to his 4th Grand Prix in his career, and this is his 128th Grand Prix, into what now, surely, is the last lap. He goes round the combined turn 1 and turn 2, on to the right-hander, and Cheever behind him in 2nd position. And if Cheever finishes in that place, it's going to be a superb drive for him, and will get his morale back, because he had a very poor season with Osella before he joined the Talbot team this year. So Eddie Cheever in 2nd place. John Watson well away now in the lead on what we are virtually certain is his last lap in this memorable Detroit Grand Prix. There he is. Well, he won in Austria, he won in Britain, he won in Belgium.
There we are, greatest sight in Grand Prix racing for a driver. Such a big lead, they don't even have to put his plus on there. He's just going to cruise round. He may not even need that 1 extra lap that they're signalling him. But a wonderful drive by John Watson, really aggressive stuff when he needed it without ever taking any risks. He used undoubtedly he's had a car advantage, but he's used it to absolute perfection, and the highlight of the race, without any doubt, was Watson going through past 3 cars on 1 lap to get clear of the big hang-up was the potential group held up by the Ferrari, and then get off, and it was really a bit of a walkover from there on. But a great race, and Watson that'll take him into the lead of the World Championship, and he must be a very happy man.
And as he goes into the Atwater Tunnel, we reckon, we've done a quick check on the timings, and we reckon that this is indeed his last lap. We've seen the board which tells him that, and John Watson now passes Salazar's car a 2nd time. His McLaren has run absolutely faultlessly. He's obviously chosen the right tyres, and there is the finish official. The checkered flag goes, and John Watson has, in the McLaren, won his 4th Grand Prix in his career, the 3rd race won by McLaren out of 7 this year. Eddie Cheever there finishing, or coming up to finish in 2nd place, and behind him Didier Pironi gets another good points position, and without a doubt, quick mental check, John Watson must have moved into the lead of the World Championship, as Rosberg comes through in 4th position in front of his teammate Derek Daly. John Watson tours in on his wind-down lap, and Jacques Lafitte, yes, there's the confirmation. 9 points for Watson, 6 for Cheever, 4 for Pironi, 3 for Rosberg, 2 for Daly, and 1 point, 1 valuable point.
Confirmation, as will also the 2nd place finish of Eddie Cheever's B and of Didier Pironi, who is this time the car you're looking at, the Ferrari car number 28, has been credited with 3rd place. Keke Rosberg from Finland being 4th, and then Derek Daly from Southern Ireland, he be 5th in the race, with Jacques Lafitte of France taking up for the 6th.
And there is Cheever going right into the garage area.
This is a compound. The cars have been brought in there to the garage area. They will then be put on a special vehicle to be driven around to Victory Circle, where they will, as ever, be presented with the garlands, the trophies, and of course the traditional bottle of champagne that will be sprayed by the winning driver. So therefore the Victory Circle still to come.
So it's Watson and Cheever, Pironi and Rosberg, Daly, and Lafitte, all unofficial. We'll be back for the final doings from Detroit. Well, there's another look at the Renaissance Center and at the final unofficial standings in the Detroit Grand Prix, the first one ever. John Watson, Eddie Cheever, Didier Pironi, K.K. Rosberg, Derek Daly, and Jacques Lafitte. Then Jochen Mass, Mark Surer, Brian Hinton, René Arnoux, Chico Serra of Brazil, and Alain Prost finishing way down in 12th place after he led this race in the early going by the marshals and by the stewards. There may be some discussion later about stopping the race, red flagging it. There is John Watson and Eddie Cheever with him. Eddie Cheever in the blue and white, John Watson in the red and white. And Pironi with the word candy on the back there in the other red uniform.
In fact, they've got all the drivers on there. I see Jochen Mass, I see Keke Rosberg. They've got a full house there. In fact, all the drivers waving to the massive crowd that has come here. And considering it's the very first Grand Prix of Detroit, I'd like to add my congratulations to all of the organizers and to Detroit for bringing this amazing event to this city. Long may it last, many more I hope they'll be. But look, you see a lot of tired drivers sitting down and resting as they're driven around the Renaissance Center to the start-finishing line area there to come back, of course, to be presented with their trophies.
For John Watson, victory at age 36. For Eddie Cheever, tremendous promise and victory in his native land at age 25.
And as we look at the Renaissance Center, there is the World Championship situation. John Watson now leads Pironi by 6 points. 2 ahead of Prost, 1 ahead of Rosberg. 4 behind in 5th position is Riccardo Patrese, and in 5th place, Niki Lauda. And we now look forward to the Canadian Grand Prix very shortly, indeed, next week.
Great drive. Was it a difficult drive for you?
Well, I'm very happy we had a restart in the race because I think Detrojt had some advantage afterwards. But otherwise, the car ran fantastic, the tires were fantastic, and it was super.
The driver was fantastic, John. Let me see the palm of your shifting hand.
Oh, it's no
Show it to the camera. Hey, not nary a blister, huh?
Not a blister, no.
A great car. Listen, can you go on and win the championship?
Well, we'll try. That's the purpose of racing. So I've got 26 points. And I think, for me, this victory is a little bit unexpected, so we're going to work hard and make sure we do the same in the others.
Okay, that's John Watson. I would hate to be with a person that sits next to me on the plane tonight.
And all our hearts go with John Watson in the hope that he will be world champion. But he's got a chance to make up another 9 points at Canada next Sunday. And we hope, but that as ever, you're going to join us.